This is Good Noticing.
Hi, Ashley. Wait, did you notice what I'm wearing?
Motorcycle boots?
And
Leggings?
they're not leggings.
What are they?
They're skinny jeans.
Are they new or are they old?
They're from, I think, in keeping with the eras and the cycle of the news, the last time Lily Allen had a hit. They are jeans that I definitely bought freshman year of college, which would have been 2010.
Wow.
2010, yeah.
God, I wonder if I still own a pair of skinny jeans.
I have 3 because they specifically said, don't throw them out. They're coming back. And I wouldn't say they're back today. In 1 to 2 years.
Okay.
Can you believe?
I mean, Alex Earl put out a skinny jean.
I see him creeping back in, and I do think boot season will kick him off, especially with the return of a high boot, because you just can't tuck a barrel jean into a cowboy boot. Like, I'm sorry. It can't. You're not Clint Eastwood. It can't be done.
No, and I've been saying for a long time, even when skinny jeans went out, that if you're wearing tall boots, it's such a sensical jean.
It's such a sensical jean. And I really think I was thinking, God, wouldn't I look cute with my wellies?
Yeah, the wellies. I think, listen, I can see how we're not necessarily doing like a skinny jean with a ked. I don't know, with a boot? Why not? You don't even see the bottom of the jean in your boot.
The boot is the bell. The silhouette still stands. You know what I mean?
It's called a boot cut because your boots, they cut through the drama.
Anyway, can you believe? Did I walk in and did you go, that girl looks crazy?
No. I didn't think that, actually.
Interesting stuff. I think maybe 2 to 3 years ago you would have said, that girl looks crazy.
And I'm wearing a ballet flat.
Wow. Alexa Chung, can you hear us now? Can we go to Glastonbury with you, please? Please.
Okay, do we have any announcements up top?
The big news is, of course, our Patreon is going up November 1 to $6 a month. You can get grandfathered in. If you sign up right now, you can stick it at $5 for the rest of your life as long as you don't disactivate or leave us. This week, we have such great stuff to talk about. We're talking about the Lily Allen album, and we're also having Troy McKeedy of Beyond the Blinds and What's Your Issue on to talk about the K-Fed book that we're covering this week. It's a week you're going to want to get in and get all the drama and then stay for life, baby.
And also, I would recommend subscribing in the desktop app. Like, go on a computer, a physical computer, go into your Patreon account and subscribe, because if you do it in the Apple situation, in the Apple App Store, they charge a service fee.
Yeah, it's like a 30% increase. So watch out. And then it really is worth it. All of our events are free for Patreons. We have this incredible event to celebrate our new billboard that Patreon got for us, and they threw us this amazing event at the Edition Hotel in Times Square. It was so fun.
It
we had caviar.
So
Did you know
fun.
there'd be caviar?
No.
I know you're not even a caviar gal, but it's nice to be at a
How
party.
could I have known?
But it's nice to be at a party knowing that there's caviar for you, should you.
Oh, yeah. I like having the option. Sure.
Listen, to me, it's just it's a fancy bagel with lox, and I love it.
Exactly. And we also have another event coming up that will be free for Patreon members, our November book club. We are reading Audition by Katie Kitamara, and she will be there. Tickets go out next week. So if you are on Patreon, you get a free ticket to that event.
Yeah, you get first access and free tickets. And then for non-Patreons, it will be $10. We're getting you guys goodie bags. There will be drinks and little bites and the author herself. So it's definitely worth it. More than anything, the $10 is to make sure you don't say you're going and then ditch, because people can be flaky. But it's going to be so fun. We'll have breakout events afterwards.
It'll be so fun. We have other stuff that we've
got movie clubs that we're working on for you guys. We'll have book clubs. It's going to be a lot of fun, and the Patreon subscribers will get free tickets and first access to everything. So well worth the $5 or even $6 if you fart around for a while and don't decide to join us till November 2nd.
So we'll see you guys over there. Claire, do you have any recommendations this week?
Yes. Oh my God. Guess what I did this weekend?
What?
A lace making intensive.
Tell me more.
I signed up for this class where you learn to make lace. I will say, my friend goes, I want a lace glove. And I was like, well, that's going to take me a while. I didn't realize that everything would take me a while. It really is like friendship bracelets on steroids. It's really intense, but super fun. You have to really focus. And there's like an ASMR element to it of like the little bobbins that you use. It was bobbin lace making.
The wood clanking.
The wood clanking. It's really soothing. Anyway, I went. It was hosted. Do you mind if I look up her name? Her name is Elena Kanagi Liu. And
okay, that's the lace maker's name.
She had really cool outfits, man. She is like a lace maker and a textile historian. And it was so interesting. You know, when you get to meet somebody who's like obsessed with something and You're like, wow, to have this much knowledge. It was really fun and interesting. I met some women. I mean, it's just really fun to like take on a new skill and try something else out and just like opening your eyes to a whole other world that you had no idea exists. And it's so fun to see like how many people are there. And I don't know. I was learning about all these like specialty bobbin makers in England who will send you a bobbin of the month, and like the woman in Vermont who will call you on the phone and tell you how to fix your project if you buy like thread from her. It was very cool. I will say in this episode, we are going to get into like horrible groups online. So it was nice to like enter into a fun niche community that feels not full of masturbating until your dick breaks. But also I'm not that deep in it. I don't know what they're doing with all those lace collars. Maybe there's something. Sometimes they go sicko mode. I don't know. Anyway, so that's Rec 1. I want to give a shout out to that lace making class specifically in Brooklyn, but I think just in general,
Cool.
trying a fun weekend-long intensive hobby. Second, oh my God, booking yourself to the brink.
Ooh.
I really think you guys, this week is daylight savings time.
Yeah.
We fall back. We're about to lose an hour. It's about to get dark. You have to book your shit right now. Put it on the calendar. Get your dinners in order. Buy tickets to concerts. Book like whatever you can get on a calendar right now so that when late Jan hits and you don't know if it's worth living anymore, you go, well, I can't kill myself today. I have a concert tomorrow. And that's one more day, baby. And I really do think like before it goes to hell, December 21, sure to say that before it gets there, you have to like make the most of before your body's clocked that it's hell time, baby. You have to go out and see your friends now. Start prepping for the winter, much like a squirrel with its nuts. You need to start collecting and hiding little treats for yourself in the future. So book yourself up.
That's so true. I'm literally moving apartments and hyperfixating on rearranging and decorating a new space. I think that'll get me to mid-Feb.
Oh my God. And then that was my third one, rearranging your furniture.
Oh,
I was like, this is crazy. Oh my God. If you're feeling bored, just try moving stuff around and see what happens.
okay.
It really can like spurt you up. So those are my 3 recs.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to know mine?
Absolutely.
Okay, listen. This album came out a couple months ago. I've been listening to it periodically. It's almost made it into my recs a few times, and then I've just thought of other things. And then another song came out this last week, added to the end of the album. And the way I have been listening nonstop for 48 hours to Ego Death at a Bachelorette Party by Hayley Williams, I can't get enough of it.
Has it been out for a few months?
It came out like via MP3
That's
in
what
like
I thought
August.
I missed it. I remember people be like, well, it's gone now. And I was like, damn.
And then it came out on Spotify a little while ago. And since it came out on Spotify, I turn it on every now and then. And there's some songs that I was really grooving to, but I don't feel like I'd been fully immersed in it. Like I hadn't really grabbed onto it. And then when she debuted Good Old Days live on stage this last weekend, I guess, I saw a couple of videos of it on my FYP and I was like, I have to have more of this song. And then I started listening to the full album. I think I've listened to the full album all the way through like 18 times in the last day. I'm so obsessed with it. I can't stop listening to it. I feel I'd never been like heavily involved in Paramore lore. I like it. I like Paramore. I've never been like in it though. And now I'm like, I guess put all the Taylor York and Hayley Williams lore in an IV bag and drip it into me as hard as you can because I have to know everything.
Oh my God. Okay. I'll check it out. I guess I really did think I lost my time. I thought it went up on a blog. I thought somebody was like, it's on her MySpace and now it's gone.
It was like on a website for a couple days and then now it's on Spotify. Anyway, it's really good. It's really fun. Sad, but it's interesting. Anyway, next up, candy corn. We got some candy corn for the office last week and having just a handful of corn every time I come in, really spectacular.
I kind of feel like candy corn's your milk.
I love it.
But I think it's brave to admit, like, you know what I mean? I think it's like something that's like widely maligned.
It is. And I don't understand. I think no one's making you eat candy corn. I had to seek it out. We were walking through Soho and I said, let's stop in this Duane Reade. I think they might have candy corn because I'd been looking for it. They don't have it at my grocery store. They don't have it. I couldn't find it. I'd been seeking to failure and I finally found it.
There's that joke. I don't even know whose joke it is, but I feel like people cite it all the time that all of the candy corn in the world came from one big batch. And I kept saying, Ashley, maybe they ran out.
And you know what? If that is true, that explains why it's consistently good. They got the recipe right one time and they've been storing it for me. And highly recommend grabbing a handful of corn. And my next rec is water. I've been drinking it.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Why?
Because I'm running a marathon next week.
Wouldn't you need like energy? Should
Yeah.
you be drinking Monster Red Bull?
Well, that's what the candy
Coffee?
corn is.
Okay. Oh my God, should I hold a handful of candy corn for you at the marathon?
I might throw up.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm nervous
I would have
because
trained on it.
can I say the problem is people keep on saying like nothing new on race day. You never know if you like eat something random and then your stomach cramps up and you keel over and die. But then also some people will be like, it's so fun. People on the course have all kinds of snacks and like a banana and a Twizzler and like whatever. And I'm worried because I don't feel like I tend to eat random things when I run. So I think I'll refrain.
What about at like mile 25?
Yeah, maybe then.
Okay. I'll course it out like dessert style.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
That's smart.
I'll have your dinner honey stinger and then I'll have your dessert candy corn.
Yay. Yum. I'll be looking forward to it. It'll keep me going. And then, yeah, I've been drinking a lot of water because here's the thing about hydrating. It's a long process. You can't just drink a lot of water one day and be hydrated the next day.
That's so
You have
fucked.
to like drink a lot of water all the time to like maintain like, you know how when you travel internationally, they say you should start drinking a lot of water a couple days beforehand. And I've never done it, but I've heard it. I've heard that as a tip. And so I'm trying it. I'm trying to like be perpetually hydrated from now until the end of the marathon.
Juicy.
Squeeze me. Should we get into this week's topics?
Yes. Okay, up top, I said to Ashley, I really wish I knew what had happened at the Louvre. And then I did no research, but Ashley's going to tell me what happened there, the heist. I wanted to be in on it. And then 2, we are talking about Wonder. If you guys don't know, Wonder is on our list of enemies. It's a food delivery service, and it's been in the ether, but this past few weeks, I've seen so many TikTok ads for it. They've really gotten into the influencer world. And I was back like, what the fuck is this shit? Of course, there was a New York Times article, so we'll be covering it and explaining to you what the fuck is this ghost kitchen hellhole.
Mm-hmm. Then we will be talking about, is it embarrassing to have a boyfriend?
Yeah, which actually is kind of the theme of the rest of this week because Vogue just put out an article asking, is it embarrassing socially now to have a boyfriend? And then we followed up with a visit from the Goon Squad, one man's look into the Gooniverse.
If you don't know what that is, trigger warning.
And then we close it out with, we did, in fact, come out of retirement once more to read Kevin Federline's new memoir. And boy, is it embarrassing to have a boyfriend. Yeah, if he's K-Fed. What a disgusting man.
Truly the center of the Gooniverse.
And then, of course, it caps off. So, Ashley, can you just kick it off, please? Can you tell me what happened at the Louvre?
Okay, so first of all, this weekend, I really feel like I gathered a greater understanding for what happened there because I was actually the guest judge at the Fort Greene.
I was gonna go, I bet this has to do with the dog costume.
The Fort Greene Dog Halloween Costume Contest, the Great Pumpkin, they call it. And one of the finalists.
Oh my God, you have to dress Bug up as Charlie Brown. Is it too late?
No.
Put one little hair on her head. I'll be Lucy and I'll keep pulling the football out from under her. And it will both be a thrill for her, but also like I'll be laughing at her.
She will fall down. But guess what? When she falls down, she bounces back up with vigor. Somewhat unlike Charlie Brown, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at the Great Pumpkin Halloween Costume Contest, there was actually one of the costumes was a Louvre robber, and they did a live reenactment on stage where they had the dog come out sneaky and all black, and then they had a box that was the Louvre, and then they put the dog in the box, and he came out covered in jewels. It was incredible work. But I looked into what happened there because I said, how accurate was this dog reenactment? Pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. So they snuck in via like a construction rig. They
In the middle of the day?
9 a.m.
Okay, can I tell you something right there? That's how you beat the French at anything. You be somewhere on time. I bet security hadn't showed up yet. Those fucking lazy. No offense to the French, but I worked with them and I've met them. They are not a people with urgency in their bones.
There's no urgency in the bones. Anyway, so they got in. They were in and out in 4 minutes. They came in via a, you know, those construction thingies.
I wish a toddler was here. That toddler would know what a construction vehicle is called.
That raise you and lower you in a basket.
A cherry picker?
Yes. Yes.
I was a toddler once, so it's a deep cut for me.
So they used a cherry picker to get in and out. They used a ladder. They used...
And people just went, oh, they must be working on the building.
Yes. Because they were wearing construction outfits.
Idiots, it's Halloween time.
Everyone can wear a construction outfit.
I guess the Louvre is about to become a spirit Halloween, just in time.
They came in, they took like $100 million worth of jewels.
And like, did they smash?
They smashed, it was like a smash and grab, but they also used a cutter to get through, I think, some of the intense boxes, the glass boxes or whatever. Sure. And they smashed some stuff and they grabbed some stuff. They got a crown. They got some stuff that I guess Napoleon's one of his wives used to wear. When they describe the importance of these jewels, I was like, you're not doing a great job explaining why this is worth $100 million.
Can I say it's because the jewels, right? Like, how much does history add to a big fat diamond? Because I saw some of it and it's just like a ton of big fat diamonds. I think the history part is like explaining how they got so many big fat diamonds together. And it was back when, they were a new discovery.
Yeah.
I feel like it was easier back then. Like peak colonial days, you really could go into a nation and be like, show me your fattest diamonds. I'm giving them to my mistress.
Exactly. And so it really is just the fact that they are big fat diamonds. And when they explain like who they belong to and why it's important, I'm like, you should have left this part out because I'm not convinced. This is kind of just spectacular because it's shiny.
I am very interested in the resale market of this stuff because it is that double-edged sword of you can't really wear your stolen jewels. Like, who has the money? Is it all going to like Putin? You know what I mean? Is it all Kim Jong-un? Like, you can't wear it to like the White House press conference. They'll notice. That being said, I love to imagine these things on Poshmark and like some fucking bitchy woman being like, I'll give you $12.
Listen,
it's used.
I've seen enough White Collar, the TV show, and Leverage, the TV show, to know that a lot of times it's like a back alley deal for a billionaire to have this like badge of honor that he shows to like very few other like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they just put it in a vault and like Lauren Sanchez will wear it, but like only in
secret.
Home.
Yeah, it's like her home.
Like only when they have an inside
diamond.
the yacht dining party.
Exactly.
But you can't wear it on the like deck of the yacht.
Exactly. I know a lot about heists and how they happen in TV, and that's exactly how this one happened, which is why I feel actually quite.
I'm sure they studied. I'm sure they were watching White Collar. Next, there'll be a doctor in the Hamptons.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. What's next? A doctor in the Hamptons? What's next? A mentalist?
What's next? A detective with OCD? What's next? A janitor lady who speaks to dead people and helps the police solve crimes?
Yeah, right.
Can you believe that's a TV show?
Yes, I've seen it. Anyway, so they snuck out. They escaped on 2 fast scooters. Well, there was 4 of them, and 2 of them went in. They all escaped on fast scooters.
Can I say something? I think in the Kim Kardashian robbery, they escaped on bikes.
This is why we've got to get a bike-friendly city.
You guys would have a lot more jewelry if you could get out quick on an e-bike. Look, oh my God. That's how Luigi Mangione got out. I have to say, the last thing you need is a car. We're working towards sustainability. And I'm excited to see the industries that adopt it first.
So then the detective showed up. He was so fancy. He had a fedora. Did you see this man?
I haven't seen anything.
Okay.
Everything I'm hearing is new.
So this man shows up with a fedora. He goes, I heard there has been something afoot.
Uh-huh. I believe it. I don't know if you're joking.
I believe his exact quote.
They're not afoot. They're a scooter, but fine.
And then I think supposedly they found some suspects, which is a huge disappointment. I think that if they do get caught, I'll be obviously devastated. Something very interesting is apparently these crown jewels were like not a big draw for the Louvre. No one really gave a shit about them. And now people are kind of clamoring to see the jewels should they get returned. And people are going to look at the other collection, like seeing what.
It's been, okay, so it's kind of a win-win-win-win.
Exactly. And did you know this happened to the Mona Lisa?
That the Mona Lisa was only interesting once it got stolen and put back?
Yes. The Mona Lisa was missing for 2 years.
I'm once again
no one gave a shit about
to
it.
Kidnap me.
No one gave a shit about the Mona Lisa. They didn't notice it. I read this when I was reading about the crown jewels and the suspicion that this is going to be like a huge boon for the Louvre.
That's huge.
Is that the Mona Lisa was extremely uninteresting to people. It was stolen in like 1911 or something like that. And it was gone for a day before anyone noticed it was missing. And then everyone was obsessed with it. And 2 years later, it was recovered. And now it's like one of the most famous paintings in the world.
I'm really thinking about how we can use this to help ourselves.
I guess we stage a kidnapping.
Bug. Bug, wash your hands.
Okay.
Can I say the problem with me kidnapping Bug as even a small, like if you were Dorit and I was PK and I staged a kidnapping of your dog for ratings, the problem is I think you would kill yourself. And then I would come back to
problem
to not much. I'd be like, it was an hour and it would be like,
I think things would swirl a bit Romeo and Juliet before before anything really positive could happen.
Ay.
Oh my God, the way I would have a meltdown, the way I would like stand in the middle of the BQE sobbing.
I won't. I guess I'll just kidnap you.
I think I'd be fine with that. I think it would be an exact opposite reaction. I do think that if I got kidnapped,
Bug would be pissed.
Bug would be pissed, obviously, because I'd be late for dinner. But like, I think I would be almost an incredible kidnappee. It's weird that I haven't been yet. I think I'd be quite chill about it.
That's an interesting take on yourself. Anyway, well, thank you for telling me all about the Louvre.
You're welcome. I hope I provided interesting context.
Are you hoping they go back? Or are you hoping that they go to a
I want
billionaire?
them to get away with it.
And I would have if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
We should be robbing more artifacts. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
I had an amazing time hearing about it and watching memes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that spurns a good meme.
Okay, should we get into the next topic?
Yeah. What is it?
Wonder.
Oh my God.
Now something I hate.
Good robbing. Bad delivery.
It's fun to steal stolen artifacts. The thing is, the jewels are stolen already.
It's like honoring its heritage.
Exactly. They want to be stolen again. They haven't been stolen in a long time and they were craving.
Here's what I want to talk about overall. Right now, we're in an interesting era of innovation in business where I think in like the 90s and 2000s, they basically said, we've noticed there's a lot of things that already exist. What if we one by one put those things on the internet and call that brilliance, right? Like Elon Musk, PayPal, he's like, I notice people share money sometimes. What if they did that on the internet? Like, you know what I mean? A lot of people put things on the internet. And every time they did, we went, diapers on the internet. Here's $500 million. That's our friend Mark Laurie. That's what he came up with. And now we're in an interesting era because we've already put everything on the internet. And once again, they won't innovate. They won't solve a problem. So now what they're doing is they're solving things that aren't problems. And the new business model is convincing people they had a problem that never existed before. That's kind of ChatGPT. They're like, you ever notice how you don't know how to Google something? No, I've never noticed that. Well, you can't. I just told you right now. Oh, you're right. I can't. Anyway, Mark Laurie is an e-commerce billionaire who has a new problem that he's brand new invented that's only going to take $1 trillion to solve and leave one single winner, him.
Mark Laurie is an entrepreneur who created diapers.com. That means 15 years ago, he said, wouldn't new parents have an easier time if they could order diapers off the internet with free shipping instead of having to go to the store every time their baby runs out of diapers? And then that was purchased by Amazon. Then he created Jet.com, which was purchased by Walmart. Jet was an Amazon competitor.
A man who made a lot of money in the era of what if we took things that exist and put them on the internet?
Exactly. So now he has ventured to innovate food delivery services. Wonder is okay, you can call it a ghost kitchen, I guess. Ghost kitchens have popped up. They were industrial food spaces that would rent out to restaurants or people making food to kind of create a fake restaurant to put on a delivery app.
Yeah, so Wonder is something that I started noticing like maybe 6 months to a year ago. I remember in my neighborhood, there were like, there's a Mediterranean and a Mexican and a Greek restaurant coming around the corner. And I was like, as somebody who would like 6 to 8 more restaurants in my little neighborhood, I was actually pretty stoked. And then I found out it was like a ghost kitchen situation called Wonder. And I was pissed because I was like, well, that defeats the purpose of living in New York City and going out to eat to fun, cute little cafes. And so then we were kind of like, well, what's going on here?
And Wonders have started popping up all over New York City. They are now in New York, DC, Boston, Jersey.
Yeah, we started being aware of them. We started being curious. And then I think in the last week or so, I've seen like dozens of ads from some of the big New York City influencers. So I'm like, okay, they're back and they're hitting the ground hard. The New York Times did like a Wonder breakdown a year and a half ago. And since then, a lot has changed. They're back in the ether. They're bigger than ever. And not because they're figuring good things out. And so we just really want to do a deep dive on like, who is this delivery app that somehow has tacos and spanakopita
and fettuccine alfredo
and steak that they can deliver to your door in 30 minutes. And what problem exactly is it that they're solving?
And what problem is it that they're starting? Okay, so Wonder is the latest brainchild of Mark Laurie. Now he's decided there's a new problem in town, and the problem is people can't get delivery fast enough, which is something that I just fundamentally kind of disagree with. I think that there is just an inherent amount of time that it takes to cook a food and get it delivered to your fucking door, and it's already a marvel that that can happen.
Which I actually agree with. I find delivery to be slow. So what I do is I just take my 2 little feet.
You can decide.
And I walk the 6 blocks and I get the food and then I'm home. And it's been 12 minutes.
Yeah, I guess there are a couple of things that I see people complain about on the internet that I have no patience for. One of them is delivery being slow.
I guess if you live in New York City and your problem is like, I mean, one of the craziest businesses in the world to me is what's that website where you can get bodega food delivered to you? To live in New York City and be like, I can't get an M&M fast enough, that's a skill issue. There are M&Ms on every block. When is that a problem? Why live in New York City if you don't ever want to quickly run and grab something?
I also do feel that there are certain things that you just can't have quickly if you want them delivered straight to your face. Like if you want sushi delivered to you, it's just not fast. Like you can't have it fast. You can have it, but you can't have it fast. And if you want it faster, you have to go and order it somewhere and stand there and pick it up or go to a restaurant. You know what I mean? I just think there are certain things where I'm like, oh, your Taco Bell didn't come at 4 a.m. fast enough.
Well, I think it's funny because we've been really like the obfuscation of the true cost of these things is actually someone can bring you Taco Bell pretty fast, but in order for that person to be able to make a living, you have to pay for the entire hour of him going to the Taco Bell, waiting for the food, bringing it to you personally and not being detracted, right? Are you willing to pay whatever a livable wage is for that full hour? No.
Right.
What you cannot have is fast delivery. That's also $2.
Exactly.
Anyway, so we were interested. We were reading this article from 2024 where at that point, Wonder had already raised about $1 billion in funding. And something really interesting about this guy, Mark Laurie, is that what differentiates his type of entrepreneurship is basically his mentality is don't take a little bit of money and see the most you can do with it. Take the most amount of money and see how many times you can like just fucking fail anyway. And it's so funny because we're reading this article from 2024 and they're talking about how Wonder is its own app. And of course, that brings on the problem of you know, you have to get people to download an app, which I think in this day and age is a really hard thing to do. People are not downloading apps the way they used to. And it's so funny because Ashley goes, no, I'm sure Wonder is on Seamless now. And I go, no, Ashley, their whole thing is that they're their own app. So we look it up and of course, they've bought Grubhub,
which had already merged with Seamless.
So they're not beating any competitors. They're simply buying out competitors by raising more funds, which is like such a funny way to do business. It's just such, to me, like loser, pathetic behavior. It's like saying you got really jacked, but really you just curb eat somebody. Like if you eat somebody, you didn't put on muscle, you ate a person. And do you know what I mean? Like I am like, okay, you haven't grown at all. You've actually just keep admitting defeat, but happen to know all the rich people already, so you can keep winning. So basically, originally, Wonder was Sprinter vans that would come to your driveway and make you fresh designer food.
And that's the problem is it's never fresh food.
Well, I think at this point it was, but it turns out it's really, really expensive to drive around and make somebody, like to bring a food truck door to door is crazy. Like they thought they could ice cream truck
food.
Like risotto. And it turns out you really can't drive around. I mean, I guess the closest we got is like a halal cart, but even those guys, they stay put.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Wonder exists to tackle food delivery, which Mr. Laurie believes often disappoints customers by arriving too slowly.
Yeah, I don't know. You can't drive around the suburbs and just hope somebody's going to run out and want food at the right time. It turns out people are eating mostly at the same time, and that's why it's easier to keep the food still and have you come to it. Do you know what I mean? You can't get 17 home addresses, fresh cooked chicken at the exact same time, even if you have an engine.
You just can't have it. Even if it were possible, you can't have it. That's a preposterous thing to think you deserve.
I don't even agree with you. Like, I think, of course you can have it. You could have a private chef. That costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
But there actually is no way.
I guess that's what I mean. Sorry. If you want it affordably at the same price that you pay for.
Like, there is a market. There is the invisible hand of the market. And unfortunately, if you want a high quality, freshly prepared thing that takes one person at your whim to pay for that, you can't also have it be cheap. Anyway, so he thought he worked around this. So first the Sprinter vans bombed. Doesn't matter. He raises another $300-400 million.
And he creates these kitchens, these storefronts, essentially, that also he feels earn more trust than what people would consider a ghost kitchen.
Essentially, a ghost kitchen is a takeout-only restaurant. But because if you're in, say, a New York City, you don't want to order from a takeout-only restaurant. The idea of living in New York City is that you're getting like this fresh, specified bistro quality food, so they have to pretend it's a real restaurant. So that's a ghost kitchen.
Right. And so then he created these ghost kitchens, but created a storefront for it. And he pretends it's like a food hall, which is a food court type where there's all these different restaurants that are selling their food to you. But it's not all these different restaurants. They're all one restaurant. They just all have different names and make a different cuisine.
So how does he afford to do this? How does he do this affordably? Basically, what they've done is they've taken Trader Joe's frozen meals and they've licensed names like
Bobby Flay, Michael Simon. So they create these fake restaurants that use the names of chefs that have already gained your trust via Last Bite Hotel, ideally, and which is my favorite show. And then they're selling you food that doesn't need gas. So the reason they're able to pop up these restaurants so quickly is because they're essentially using a boiler, a fryer, and a microwave.
So literally they're making frozen food aisle foods in the kitchen you could build inside a dorm. They're like, what can you cook on a hot pot with like a tea kettle?
Yes, exactly.
And then they're upcharging you for it, calling it high-end food and being like, look, we've solved the problem. I mean, as Ashley was saying, the 90s and early aughts were about taking businesses that exist and putting them online and calling that innovation and entrepreneurship. Now that they've put everything online already, they're inventing problems that were already solved. I'm sorry, there wasn't a problem of getting food quickly in New York. He's just telling you that there was.
Exactly. And what they've done is they've just invented language to sell you microwave dinners that have already been microwaved and then they get delivered to your door. They're doing the microwaving for you.
And the funny thing is it's failing. Like it really was not working. They obviously couldn't get people to the Wonder app. So how did they innovate? They just bought a thing that was working, which also, by the way, wasn't really working. A lot of those delivery apps are failing. Like a lot of them are pivoting. There's razor thin margins in restauranting. They have to pay a huge portion of their takeout income to these apps, which still does not cover the price of the driver. And like, it's crazy. When they bought Seamless, there was a 23% corporate layoff.
Yeah.
They really are just coming in and being like, let's take things that barely work, make them worse, and ask for another billion from my friends. I don't know. So I guess he'll win just because, like, I don't know how you beat a guy that seems to have another $1 billion to try again.
So essentially, now that they've purchased Seamless and Grubhub, which I think was the same company at this point, they don't have to tell you that a restaurant is a Wonder Kitchen. They can just say, like, Claire's Pasta Restaurant, and you can be like, I don't know where Claire's Pasta Restaurant is, but that sounds interesting. I'm going to order this pretty cheap penne alla vodka. This is affordable. This is affordable delivery. The thing you have to ask yourself is, when something is this affordable and it involves human labor, why?
Well, soon it won't. So basically, one of his things that he's really proud of is they've like engineered in a lab these microwave foods that they can literally just like heat up in hot water and then send to you. And so some of the ways they've cut prices is because there's no cooking required. It's all microwavable food, more or less. So they have what he calls like low trained workers. So they have these people, you could get anybody off the street more or less and teach them in 2 hours how to use a microwave. And now they're looking into robot deliveries. If you are a person with 2 feet that works and you're paying $15 to have a robot deliver you Trader Joe's microwavable food for $30, like, you are an idiot.
Yeah, but one of the things that I think is so important is that these are inexpensive items right now. Like, one of the things that's helping these Wonder Kitchens right now is that on delivery apps, they are cheaper than the average restaurant because it doesn't require a human to cook it. It doesn't require quality ingredients of any kind because they're just like shipping in frozen ass food. And it is going to impede on the profits of actual businesses, right? So like right now what they can do is they can artificially push their own businesses. They can push it to the forefront. Yeah. The way that
Uber artificially lowered prices, Airbnb, like all
to
of
get
these,
you reliant on it, essentially.
Yeah, and then kill the competing industries. And then once they have the monopoly, then they can like boost it back up.
Right. So right now, this article talks about the way that 10% of most restaurants' business comes from delivery and takeout. Most restaurants don't have a massive profit. So if you are cutting off 10% of their income, that is a huge detriment to any independently owned business. So if you are taking away 10% of their income with this like garbage trash.
I mean, it's a lot like Blank Street. Like, I just don't understand the college-aged loser who looked around New York City and said, the problem with this city, there's not enough places to get coffee. It's like almost exclusively places to get coffee. Where I live, there's very few restaurants and there's just places to get coffee. Coffee and wine bars. I'm begging for protein.
Wonder sells not just $7 burgers and $11 burritos, but also a $26 pork chop and $34 steaks and many others in the fast fine category. $11 for a burrito is just not that much cheaper than a burrito. Like, it's like $2 cheaper than a normal burrito.
Also, it's like he has no restaurant experience.
$2 cheaper than a normal burrito from a restaurant and $6 more expensive than a frozen burrito, which is what you're eating.
It's just also very interesting to me what he thinks will happen scale-wise, because the thing about food is every single meal is different. There's a quality control that doesn't go into, say, diapers or household products that are more standardized And the larger you get, as most fast food chains see, the harder it is to have high quality ingredients at scale. That's what someone like Sweetgreen or someone like Chipotle says. And it's interesting. He said in 3 to 5 years, he believes Wonder will be worth $30 billion, and that's what he wants to sell it for. He so far has never had a business that has like sustained itself. He's like the king of exit strategies, which actually makes you wonder what the inherent value of his businesses are, because he never turns the profit himself. He only cuts value so little that the bigger competitors have to buy him out. And so they're saying with Wonder, what's his long-term plan? Because there isn't really an exit strategy in place, except for maybe a private equity company would buy him out. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's ever been able to figure out a way to add value. He doesn't have independently valuable companies. He only has companies that kind of attack other bigger companies who can afford to say, we'd lose less buying you than like letting you keep going.
Yeah. And it also seems that with this business, the crux of it is essentially like, what level of evil can he achieve? Like, is he just going to put local restaurants out of business? Is he going to disrupt the entire labor market around the food industry? Like, you know what I mean? Like, at what level is he going to destroy
Next,
something?
he's already bought Blue Apron meals. So he wants to do like those he also wants to get into groceries.
So at what level is he going to destroy things, you know?
It's so funny to be somebody who like is so rich and seems to be good at business, and then, you know what I mean? Like just the act of business and not the act of actually thinking of anything helpful.
I guess the point is that if you've ever been curious about the food from a Wonder, I'm begging you to never indulge.
Oh, but that's what I was going to say. I'm really interested in like what the long-term plan could possibly be, because ultimately he's never going to put every restaurant out of business.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's an impossible task.
It's interesting because also anyone that's ordered from any of these restaurants, I've seen reviews. It's really bad.
But that's what I'm saying is like, what's the long-term plan? Because the weird thing about food is like, you know, you have a bad meal. If a restaurant has your trust, maybe you give them 1 or 2 bad meals, but people will just start ordering from somewhere else that does it better. So like the food quality is off. You know what I mean? It doesn't sound good, and I think it'll only get worse as he scales up. So I wonder if he is prepared to deal with that. Oh, what I was going to say is Chipotle spent 20 years trying to get to 30 billion. Sweetgreen is at 2 billion, and then Kava I think is at 7 billion. So this idea that he thinks he's going to come out of the gate and within 2 to 3 years be the biggest there's ever been in terms of the fast casual valuation. But I feel like what he'll do is he'll probably raise $32 billion and buy Chipotle and then be like, look how much we're worth. Just like I said, 30 billion. Do you know what I mean?
Because that's the thing is when you say, like, obviously he can't put everyone and everything out of business, but he can keep buying shit. And I think it's very interesting that already from this 2024 article, we're seeing that his goal was to funnel everyone through his own app, and within a year saw that wasn't possible and bought Seamless and Grubhub.
It's so funny to have the mentality, if you can't beat them, buy them.
Because that's what was happening to him. He was diapers.com. He wanted to expand diapers.com into an Amazon-like business, and he got bought. Like, Amazon taught him his own business model, which is like, find an industry you can buy, essentially. Yeah. That's what he's done. And that's what he found in food, is he said, no one has scaled at this level before because people say it's impossible, but that means everyone is at a level that I can still buy.
Anyway, don't get fooled. They're in there like everybody else. Order local. You know what? Have you ever called someone on the phone and ordered that way? That way they get to keep all their margins. It's just the recommendation.
You could just go somewhere and pick it up. Pick it up in person.
You'll be home so fast. That's what I do. And of course, I'm saying not everybody lives in New York, but he is focusing right now on New York City. Of his 15 stores, like 10 are in New York. So he is coming for a group of people. Like, that's what's so funny. This idea that you looked around New York and you said, the problem here is there's not enough options for food.
He's coming after cities in general, because this was in 2024. Now he's in Boston. Now he's in DC. These are all places that are generally considered more walkable. But even if they're not, I know DC, I know Boston, you guys also have cars. You can go pick something up. Like, you can go get it yourself. You don't have to order delivery from a Wonder storefront.
It is so funny to pay a premium for like the shittiest food you've ever had.
Okay, should we talk about something even more embarrassing than ordering microwaved food?
Oh my God. Yeah, having a boyfriend. Is having a boyfriend embarrassing now? This is an article in British Vogue that actually shouted out our good friend of the pod, Josh, Tell the Bees on TikTok, Instagram, and Substack. He had a Substack recently that she cites called Boyfriend Land, where women's online identity is centered around the lives of their partner, a situation rarely seen reversed. Women were rewarded for their ability to find and keep a man with elevated social status and praise, et cetera, et cetera. You can go read his Substack. We'll link it. But she goes on to say, has things changed? It seems like right now we live in this era where having a boyfriend is a little bit embarrassing. Women are showing their boyfriends less and less online. And women are citing, when somebody starts posting about their boyfriend, I don't like following them. The author herself is like, I've muted many an influencer because I don't want to hear about their fucking boyfriend. And I felt very called out because I think she had a line in here. On the more confusing end, you have faces blurred out of wedding pictures or entire professionally edited videos with the fiance conveniently cropped out of all the shots. Women are obscuring their partner's face when they post as if they want to erase the fact that they exist without actually not posting them. I am somebody who is married.
Oh my God, that's so embarrassing.
I know. What's more embarrassing than having a boyfriend is having a husband, but not as embarrassing as having a fiance.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, look who's French now.
Anyway, I don't post my husband. One time I did this summer post a photo of us, but only because I looked so freakishly good. I couldn't help it. I had no others. I went back and tried to recreate it solo. You guys, I took 35 photos. A woman I met at that wedding, I said, you have to keep taking these photos. None of them came out as good. I had to block out his face. I do think there's something, they were joking about how like having a boyfriend is Republican coded. We just saw this play Liberation on Broadway. And I think it deals a lot with the conflict of how you live your personal life versus your values and your morals and your political beliefs. And there is, like, how do you fight the patriarchy when you like
are in love with a man?
And it is like a good question. And like all of these things that bring such joy and like you like a boyfriend and it is embarrassing. And I think that is a part of it, that we're in this world where people are so outspoken about their beliefs that then it is kind of embarrassing when you're not living up to, you know what I mean? Like there are these unfortunate facts. So I think that is one thing. I also want to cite with the rise of social media based jobs. And I would say, even though I am not an influencer, we are not influencers. Our job is hugely social media based, as is almost every job. You could be a realtor that needs to have a social, like, you know what I mean? Like most jobs need
so many businesses.
Social media jobs is such a funny way to put it because it's like marketing. Show me the business that doesn't have marketing. So much of marketing is social media these days. And I do think women have found the most success that way. Like that's been a way for women to kind of level the playing fields, is use the social media advantage. And so now you have this weird like gray area personal business. Do you know what I mean? And I do think that there's an element to that of like, why would your boyfriend be in your business? You don't bring your boyfriend to your job, and your job is semi-social media. It feels more professional to leave him out. It also feels like boyfriends can be embarrassing.
I think there are a couple pieces of this that are all tangentially related. And I think that this is like a broader topic than even this article is able to dive into, because I do think part of it is that boyfriends can be embarrassing. And if your social media is your job, like not getting embarrassed at work is hugely important. Like there are so many influencers who we've seen that have like found out via a listener that their boyfriend is cheating on them. That's hugely embarrassing and like kind of almost a knock to your credibility, unfortunately. And so like allowing a space where a man can come in and like undermine your work in that way by simply embarrassing you or like making you feel dumb almost is a risk. And so I think that that's part of it.
Yeah, there's something about men, like the performative nature of social media is no matter how authentic you are, you're performing for an audience. There was not naturally a camera there. You're choosing and building a narrative. And either a man will perform alongside you, which is an ick in its own right. There's something really gross about like, imagine being in a like sketch couple that's always like pulling pranks on each other.
I actually had this conversation at a party on Saturday because one of my friends was showing me a guy that she thought she could set me up with. And he is very online and has a huge social media following. And I said, oh, no.
I can't. Ashley and I are very turned off by men with social media followings. But then there's also the fear that they'll perform in the opposite way of like kind of rolling their eyes. They don't want to partake. And of course, I actually think it's quite reasonable to not want to partake in somebody's utada or somebody's like I understand if you are not somebody that wants to put yourself out there, there is this feeling of like, I don't want to be in your video. But then of course, when that video is put up, to have your partner, your romantic partner, seem unsupportive of what you're doing is also quite damning. So there's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't. I find it easier to just leave them out. I also think it's like the performative thing. We read Lee from America's Memoir. She's like one of the OG Instagram influencers. And it was so funny because part of the reason we thought her book kind of sucked was that the big reveal is it turns out behind every perfect picture was not necessarily a perfect life. And I'm like, yeah, we knew.
Yeah.
And so I think we are in this like post-authentic era of we know that just because you wrote a long-ass caption about how much you love each other doesn't really mean shit.
Yeah.
And there is something like, why do you need us to think that your relationship's great? Shouldn't you just have the relationship? To quote Jane Fonda to J-Lo.
And so I think that there is this thing, like you said, where there are many different moving parts here. I think, again, part of it is embarrassment. Part of it is, what are you hoping to get across with your content? That you are a girl in a relationship or what?
Yeah, because it's like anything you're putting out there, you kind of want praise for. So you want us to praise that you have a boyfriend?
Yeah, and I think that what you said earlier about it being a little bit Republican coded, I think a lot of it is also that our society is hopefully attempting, and we're not seeing this in all aspects, we're not seeing it in Republican tradwife content, but there is a part of our society that's moving past this belief that the greatest achievement a girl can have is a husband. Like, we're moving into a space where like actually having a boyfriend isn't the most successful thing you can do. There are other things that women can be celebrated for. And so it's okay to be single. And in fact, the swing is now happening where in certain circles, like quoted in this article, it's almost cooler to be single. Like, people will say like, oh, that's impressive that like a cool girl can just be single. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm actually working so hard at it to stay single. Even though every cool guy in town wants to date me, I said that's Republican coded. I don't want to.
She's voting with her pussy every day.
Exactly. I say, stop it. I say, get out of here, you cool, tall, tattooed man. I don't want to embarrass myself.
Yeah, so try harder, boys.
Stop it. The answer is no. I'm trying to be cool. What I mean is, I think that there is this space where like you do have to say, well, what are you bragging about? You know, I think that like obviously articles like this can exist, and I still think the societal norm is
we're talking about a very small
to be heterosexually partnered. And I do think because of that, it's interesting to me that articles like this exist and statements to the contrary exist, because I think that that is progress. Because I think the reason the conversation started is because women started getting online and saying, if I'm not in a relationship, it's not my fault. Like, and I'm not a shitty person for it. It's because the dating pool right now is treacherous. And I think that finally certain people are starting to accept that like a lot more women are going to be single because men are too evil.
Yeah, it was funny. I was just laughing because then another point of this article was like, if these girls are so keen on keeping their boyfriend off their Instagram and like not hard launching, then why do the soft launch of like a hand on a driving wheel? Like it's tough because that's not really what I want my account to be about. Like, I like keeping that part of my life private, but at the same time, we do live together. So he comes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think that's the hard part, is that the ideal is that if you're in a good relationship, you're married to a man who takes a good photo. I'm just shy of that. We're getting close. But what I was going to say is I do think it comes down to ultimately, like, what are you trying to prove?
Yeah. And to who and why? Like, why do you need a stranger to be impressed by your dating?
Yeah, I think to who and why. And I think that generally, like, if you aren't trying to, like, aggressively prove that you're in a good relationship, the chances are that you are in a good relationship. Like, if you are in a relationship that you're not obsessively trying to prove to people, then you are in a good one. So when people catch glimpses of you, it's easy to be like, eye roll.
Well, I guess I think when you allow the internet to be a part of your relationship, it does change it.
Yeah.
In the same way that everything changes once it's being watched. If being in a relationship becomes part of your content, now you have something to prove. I mean, Ned, what's his name, from the Try Guys, listening to him on his podcast being like, well, that's all they wanted to see from me was this guy who loved his wife and kids. So then I felt so pressured to put on this public farce of being a guy who loved my wife and kids. I never wanted to be a wife guy. I always wanted to cheat. You guys made me. The algorithm forced me to pretend to love my family. I guess, yeah, your wife would have been better off if you had just been openly cheating on her without this pressure to pretend that you loved her the whole time. Yeah, you're right. That's on us. But it is like you're more inclined to salvage it. You feel like people want that from you. There's like a third voice in your relationship.
Yeah.
That I think can complicate it, or like muddy judgments.
Yeah.
So Harper's Magazine put out a report by Daniel Kolitz called The Goon Squad: Loneliness, Porn's Next Frontier, and the Dream of Endless Masturbation, that I kept seeing being spoken about on Twitter. People were saying it was a really depressing article. I saw one person at one point, somebody being like, in 10 years, we'll all be illiterate. And this is the evidence. I didn't see evidence of that.
I felt that this was evidence of great literature. I felt like I was reading Frankenstein, the way you were talking about how every 10th word you needed to stop and like really take in an alternate form of sentence structure and be like, what are we really trying to say here from a...
Yeah.
reader's perspective.
Yeah. So gooning, if you don't yet know, gooning, this is to quote the article, is a new kind of masturbation. More precisely, a new kind of masturbation at the heart of an internet-based, pornography-obsessed, Gen Z-dominated subculture every bit as defined and vibrant as the hippies or the punks in their prime. The act itself resembles edging, repeatedly bringing oneself to the point of climax without actually climaxing. But gooning is more goal-oriented and more communal. The gooner goons to reach the goon state. I'm sorry. I hate that goon is so fun. I hate that I'm like, you're right. I do want to use this word as much as possible. I do want to be like, what are you, a fucking gooner? What are you gooning off over? Like, there is something that really lends itself. I need to know linguistically. We need to tag that guy on TikTok and be like, why is that such a fun word to make mean everything? The gooner goons to reach the goon state, a supposed zone of total ego death or bliss that some liken to advanced meditation, the attainment of which compels them to masturbate for hours or even days at a time. So gooners have goon caves. Do you want to tell them what a goon cave is?
Yeah, goon cave is a room with ideally a bunch of screens where you can just watch a ton of porn.
Like lots of different, not one big experience.
No,
not
you can
IMAX style porn.
Many porns at once, up to, I think in this article, one person has 27 screens.
You know that, did you ever watch Girls?
Yes.
There's that episode where Marnie dates that Booth Johnson, the artist. And his art is like essentially a pre-goon goonosphere. The goon cave would be like being locked in a chokey with nothing but porn memes.
Yes, basically.
That's like the dream, and they're working towards it.
A goon cave is when you have these screens and guys in the goon Discord.
You don't have to say it like you're choking over the words. You know it comes naturally to the tongue. There's a reason it's taken off, and it's just like Twitter, a great name goes a long way.
So in the goon Discord, what's happening is people are showing off their goon caves alongside. So they'll put tons of porn on all their porn screens and showcase their erect dick in front of it. Yeah. And it's just photo after photo of a dick in front of all these TVs with tons of porn on them. And it becomes this like almost communal experience where you're like showing off your setup.
There's this thing called goon fuel where like, I guess the problem is there's so much porn right now, right? Like they said in 2006, the official porn industry made 13,000 videos. Right now there's 4.5 million OnlyFans accounts. So when you think about the amount of porn that's being created, you know, for an aficionado, for a connoisseur to be like just mucking through it all and finding the good stuff is a lot of work. So the goon fuel is like, you have your personal stash of like the best splices of the best porn.
They're like preparing supercuts of their favorite things.
Yeah.
And then watching so much of it at once.
Yeah. The problem is I think your brain becomes numb to it. And that's like part of it. So there's this whole culture of like humiliation, this idea that you've like, instead of being embarrassed that you're the guy that like lost his job and his friends because you couldn't stop beating off to porn, they get off on it. So they'll be like, yeah, you can't stop watching porn, you little sicko. You got no friends. You got no friends. And the problem is like the more you watch, the more you are embarrassed because you have no friends, which leads you to more watch. Like it is like a real, they can't qualify it as a chemical addiction, but obviously
it's something.
It's something. And it's like not only, you could work with a gooner. Not me.
Not me.
Me?
No, not me.
I guess we work with our editor. She could be a gooner, I guess. She's got the talent. Well, I'm just saying she has the skills.
She's an editor. She knows how to make a supercut of great porn.
A Lord callback once more, a supercut of us.
So essentially these supercuts, people create these cuts of tons of porn with like a voiceover being like, you are a loser. Not really a loser. Actually, some of them are a loser. And it kind of incorporates now this humiliation kink and this black hole kink where you're just like in a world of porn only. Yeah. And there are people who, you know, he does this massive survey with as many gooners as he can.
He was like, how am I going to get anybody to admit to this shit? He goes, I literally had to close the poll after a couple days because like everybody was desperate. And that's the weird part.
Part of it is like this desperation to like share and then be shamed.
Yeah, but it's also like, that's where their friends are. It's no different than being in like in a Will and Grace subreddit or something. These people, their friends are fellow gooners. They're on there all online all day. And there's like these video groups where, okay, so there was this app called Rabbit. And the premise was like you and whoever could all watch Netflix together. And you'd watch Netflix in the middle. And then it'd be like little squares of everybody around so you can see everybody watching it. And then they just started like group jerking off to it. There's a lot of like group jerking off.
They gather in the same rooms with tons of screens.
There's this thing called like a goon off, like a goon comp. where they like competitively send each other porn. It's so gay, but they're not. It's like different than being gay. It's like a community of straight men who love to jerk off and look at each other jerking off. And
so speaking of them being straight men, so a lot of them have said that gooning has kind of sparked them to explore bisexuality because they love watching men jerk off so much. But the other thing is that it's created this new identity, or like kind of emphasized this new identity where some people consider them as pornosexual, which is a sexuality that they determine their relationship is with porn. They don't need a woman to feel pleasure. They don't need a woman for romantic anything, or like another person for romantic anything. They fulfill all their romantic needs via watching a fuck ton of porn.
Yeah, and so he was saying it's kind of like a vol cell, but basically they're saying like, Sasha said, why would I need you? I've got porn. And I think it's one of those things where you're just like, what's scarier? Because he does meet somebody who has a friend. He's like, we ended up having to stop being friends because he like lived amongst filth and he just started peeing in his room and there was cum everywhere and he had like 50 different sex toys and he never cleaned them. And he like really fell prey to the gooner goal of just doing nothing but watching porn and losing your life. And you're like, okay, that's horrible and scary. But is it worse to think that like the guy you work with, like the IT guy at your job does a 40-hour work week and then goes home and goons? Because he was asking, he goes, well, how many of you guys are really just gooning all day? And he goes, the response was crazy. He's like, most of them are really only having like 8-hour FAP sessions 2 to 3 times a month. I go, 2 to 3 times a month. 2 to 3 times a month.
And he says so many of them are doing it like 3 hours a day.
Which is to me a lot.
A lot. Okay. So, and their mantras, like a lot of what their mentality is around, like we said in the intro, reaching this enlightened state via just jerking off into oblivion. Follow me, a voice whispers. Keep scrolling further, deeper, forever. Submit to porn. You can't turn back. Like it's about literally losing your life to porn.
And it's one of those things where if you ask them, it seems like that's where the addiction line comes into play, where a lot of them are like, no, I don't actually want to lose my job. Like my goal isn't to give up everything. But that's kind of the ethos. And then, obviously it does trip some people into that. And the problem is it is like self-continuing because it's like the deeper you're in this world, the harder it is. You can't go to work, look for new friends and have them be like, well, what's your hobby? And be like, I goon. Because that is something you shouldn't tell people at work. And that's not kink shaming. That's just being normal at work. And I don't care if I sound like a fucking conservative. Don't tell me you goon. Not even me. And I'm a podcaster talking about gooning. There's this guy called Noodle Dude. Who's like,
that's in all of these words. There's like wristband guy and like noodle dude and like into the verse man sphere.
Noodle Dude is like the god. He's like considered an artist. He is, he's the Taylor Swift of, he's like the Maybach Music of porn supercuts. He was the first guy to start doing these like, they call them porn music videos where you just splice lots of different kinds together and you put techno music and it like switches on the beat. And he's like, they're all like, oh yeah, if you scroll through videos, they're all copying his style. They all like try really hard to keep underage girls out of it, which just goes to show how many underage girls are a part of it. And so Noodle Dude actually employs people who like try to verify all the girls. And now he's giving them credit because of lawsuits of them being like, you stole this. Anyway, it's like this whole world. And he's just like a dude who has a full-time job and like, this is his hobby.
Anyway, so the conclusion of this article is essentially that he's in one of these wank battles. The writer goes, I don't understand how anyone finds this pleasurable or addictive or anything. And then he comes to this realization that it isn't really about the pleasure of the experience itself. It's about the experience of being like wholly immersed in an online subculture.
I can't so neatly separate the gooners as a whole from the rest of us. Think about it for a second. What are these gooners actually doing? Wasting hours each day consuming short-form video content, chasing intensities of sensation across platforms, parasocially fixating on micro-celebrities who want their money, broadcasting their love for those micro-celebrities in public forums, conducting bizarre self-experiments because someone on the internet told them to. In general, abjuring connective, other-directed pleasures for the comfort of staring at screens alone. Does any of this sound familiar? Do you maybe know some folks who get up to stuff like this? It's true that gooners are masturbating while they engage in these behaviors. You could say that only makes them more honest. Granted, day-in-the-life TikToks or unboxing videos won't poison your soul to precisely the same degree as a gooner porn, but it's hard not to see the goonerism as just an intensification, almost a burlesque, of prevailing cultural trends. Pornosexuals are clearly not the only people out there in the process of retreating from life. It's probably more useful to think of the company like Alo, the owner of Pornhub, as being similar to Meta, Netflix, or FanDuel. From these companies' perspectives, the ideal consumer would do literally nothing but goon, lose at gambling, and maybe watch other people play video games. You can try to fight this. You can read a book, pet a dog, buy a stupid box to lock away your phone. You can make a joke about the box, about the absurdity of your need for it, but what do these companies care? They've won. If they have their way, and they usually do, in time, we will all be gooners of a kind.
These people have found kind of a horrifying thing to build their identity around, but everyone has something right now that they are engaging in unblinkingly at a disturbing level.
Yeah, and it's so funny because, I saw the discourse of that last comment, like, of course, unboxing videos aren't as bad for your soul. And I do think it's interesting to say, like, of course, friggin', all those little kink guys out there are being like, oh, demonization. People can't just be jerking off with their buddies anymore. Suddenly they're freaks. And I do think that I see both sides. I do see how, like, this is very dangerous to women. I think this idea of, like, when you're looking at hours and hours of women having sex, it's hard to think of them as people. I do think this leads to violence against women. I do believe, like, as more women get into porn, like, the barriers have been lowered. And, like, I do think there is a conversation about the detriment to women. And of course, then you have the underage conversation. But then, of course, I don't know, what does all the unboxing do? It forces consumerism, which does what? Like, destroys the world.
And also on an individual level, like, sends people into just massive amounts of debt because they believe that they should have.
Well, can I say that is, like, your own problem? If you're, like, I feel like the bigger problem is every time you buy something on TikTok Shop because you saw an unboxing video, you are probably employing child labor.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there are children getting hurt. And, like, also even the Netflix of it all, that, like, watching Netflix, we all talk about AI data center water usage, but it's like streaming also uses it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these aren't victimless crimes.
Right.
There's all these things where we've been able to take the consequences of these actions that are digital. So they feel so like nothing, but it is eroding the environment that is disproportionately affecting, like, the global south via environmental crises. There are droughts. There are food deserts. There are, like, these problems. It's because we're all, like, addicted to nonstop entertainment.
Yeah.
And, like, getting what we want. I mean, the problem that Wonder's trying to solve, that this idea that any family anywhere in America should be able to have 6 different kinds of meals delivered to them fresh immediately. Like, the removal of all friction from life. The idea that you shouldn't have to even click between porn tabs anymore.
Yeah.
But we all engage in it in some way. Like, we're all very addicted to immediate gratification, and it's hard to break.
Yeah. At the end, he grapples with the question of, like, what is the likelihood of people kind of waking up to the truth of their circumstances, their actions, and the effect of it on the world around them. And it's probably none. He goes, most people.
He goes, I do think it's possible that sustained overexposure will dampen the medium's effectiveness as a numbing agent.
Yeah.
I think he does. That's his hopeful take. I also
it's a hopeful take, but
want to point out that he does find a direct corollary to the people who were, like, in high school during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there's been a huge effect on people whose, like, formative years were, especially their formative sexual years, they were, like, locked at home for 2 of them. I do wonder if people who go through, like, normal adolescence again will return to a more reasonable, like, interpersonal life.
Hopefully.
You have to think, right?
Yeah.
But you don't. You're like, we're all fucked.
No, I don't think we're all fucked. I think it's going to be longer than 2 years. I think that there are, like, lasting cultural norms that we have to shake off, because I think right now we are in
the goon territory.
The goon territory. Like you said, there is a corollary to people who specifically experience their formative sexual years locked inside, but this also is a pervasive situation where all online endless scrolling is related to gooning in a way. I think that that's going to take a lot longer to shake, because it is a current norm of even more than just current adolescence. I think that there are so many people who you cannot convince an endless scroll is a bad thing. And so that is still reaching younger people who, like, have the opportunity to go outside.
Yeah.
And are not, because there is
like,
no incentive
if you're the
to.
kind of person being raised by parents who, like, think the best thing to do is, like, give you an iPad, why wouldn't you grow up to become a gooner?
Exactly. Like, that's the thing is, like, yeah, you can go socialize outside, but, like, are a lot of people still living the way that they essentially did during COVID? Kind of.
Yeah. I mean, that's just another reason why having a boyfriend is embarrassing. I guess anybody could be a gooner and you just don't know. You have to.
Now that's another thing to look out for on the fucking apps.
Do you think Bug's a gooner?
I mean, no. I think
I think she doesn't even think to jerk off.
Staunchly asexual, and, like,
yeah, she watches it for the art direction. She, like, loves the imagery of it. She watches everything on mute and just she'll take a screenshot and go, look at the composition here.
She likes natural lighting upon a woman's flesh. Anyway, should we talk about another endless jerk off?
Kevin Federline, the one and only.
So Kevin Federline wrote a book, which is obviously heartbreaking to the book community, because he's, I don't know, I guess, like, besmirched your name anyone who's ever written a book, he just opened a mud bucket in the nice neighborhood.
Okay, well, I just rated it 1 star.
Hell yeah.
Because otherwise
get
there's
him.
no rating. So I'll get him eventually. So this book is an explainer about what it was like to be married and co-parenting with Britney Spears. And I have to say, it's exactly
Don't nobody need that explained.
I want to disclaim something up top.
Okay.
I feel I very rarely call ableism, like throw a flag on the play. I feel with the conversations around Britney Spears and her mental health, I'm like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, I feel like the way that either people are like, she's perfectly stable and she should be president, or she's mentally unwell and like can't control her own finances and should be locked up in a goon chokey. Like, I am like, there is a middle, like, you are allowed to be mentally ill. You are allowed to be traumatized. You are allowed to make bad financial decisions with your own fucking money. That if you can work hard enough to earn millions of dollars, you get to blow it on a poker game or on strippers if you want. And she's not doing any of that.
Yeah, I guess I feel very stressed. This book was a lot more upsetting than I realized it was going to be. It put me in a pretty bad mood. I guess I feel very sad about the fundamental misunderstanding around mental health within the Spears community. I think that there is like a real...
When you say Spears community, do you mean her family or the extended the Britney
I guess
fans?
All of it, but especially in her immediate family. I think with her sister and her ex-husband, I think there's a true lack of understanding about, well, we've all been through hard things. Why can't you just deal with it? She is not well, and I agree with you. That doesn't mean that she can't be in control of her life. Like, I don't think that that's fair to say she's either perfect or she needs to be locked up. But I also think the way that they genuinely don't understand that she is, it seems like not a particularly mentally well person. And that means that she is processing things differently than the way you would have processed it. Like,
and that she needs extra. I mean, the amount of times he comes to the conclusion of like, something is seriously wrong here.
So why can't she just take responsibility for it?
Yeah. Like at one point he has some line like, but unfortunately, she's pushed away everyone who could help her, like her assistants and her agents. And I'm like, well, then stand up and fucking, like, these are not actually her family. Anyway, so let's get into it. So basically, I will give him credit. He does not think anybody gives a fuck about him. He cuts to the chase real quick.
And yet, that's actually something that I feel is very at odds in this book, is his awareness of how little people give a shit about him. But also, he's like indignant about the fact that they don't, and also somewhat in denial of the fact that they don't. He feels that he deserves to tell his side of the story. He's like kind of in denial of the fact that it doesn't really matter.
He does rip through his childhood. I mean, literally, I'm on paragraph 4 of the book. By 19, I'd been through a lot. That's a funny way to go through it. Anyway, but I guess he was always a dancer. He never like formally took classes, but he was part of a dance crew. After getting mixed up in some drugs and stuff as a teenager briefly, he got back involved and he was inspired to move down to LA. He does what all memoirists do, which is talk about like the ages and the eras and the seasons of rejection and trial and error and learning and adapting. And then he goes on to say, within 2 weeks of moving to LA, I had an agent. It begs the question, how much rejection is that? And it does seem like, I guess he was quite a captivating dancer because he had a lot of success right away. He went on tour with LFO, which is actually the first time he met Britney, but she says at the time,
they didn't really interact because he was touring with the opener and she was the headliner. So there just wasn't a lot of backup dancer of the opener and main headliner interaction.
He went on tour with Pink, which pissed me off because he really goes out of his way to talk about like what a level-headed, incredible performer Pink was and what a star and how she was so professional and she was 18, but she showed such leadership. Didn't you feel like it was kind of a dig at Britney to like make a big to-do about this teenager who was clearly so like tapped in? So he did that. He like got to do a Michael Jackson music video.
He had some major gigs. He had some major success. He was able to get his own apartment. He started dating Shar Jackson, who had been on Moesha. And they, it seems pretty quickly, had their first child together.
Yeah. Shar actually had 2 other children who were 5 and 7. She was living with her family and he was living in LA. Then before our first daughter was born, Shar had a miscarriage. That loss hit me hard more than I realized at the time. I felt ready to have a kid. He's 24 at this point.
So then they do have their first kid, and that relationship was hard because her family was extremely around. They moved in together, and she had parents and siblings and just like a large extended family that was constantly in their orbit. And he goes, I was 24, a new father. I wasn't ready for this whole like family era. And this is very important later, that he had a hard time living with such a large family.
Which is crazy because then why have a kid? It turns out very quickly that actually they aren't meant for each other and they're fighting a lot and they're unraveling. It wasn't like I hated being home. I loved being around my daughter, and Char's family was great, but it could get overwhelming, always having so many people around. So he'd go to Vegas for a couple of nights or hang out with the boys just to breathe.
Before he's going to Vegas with the boys and spending nights with his friends so that he just has somewhere to breathe, he talks about how after he had a child, he didn't want to be away from them. So he put a stop to touring. So he said, I'm not going to be able to go on tour anymore because I have to be home with my child. I don't want to be on the road for like weeks or months at a time. And then immediately he's spending the night at his friends' houses and going to Vegas because he needs to get away. So he can't be away to make money. He can only be away to like gamble and hook up with other people.
Yeah. And then he goes, I was looking for a way out. Then we found out Char was pregnant again. Ultimately, I realized forcing it wasn't working. It wasn't fair to Char, to our kids, or to myself. I've always been a family-oriented person. Okay.
I think part of the reason things dragged on longer than they should have is because I've always been a passive person. I avoid confrontation whenever I can. I try to be mindful of other people's feelings. And because of that, I've stayed in relationships longer than I probably should have.
He was married by the time that other baby was born. To sit here and be like, I'm someone who sticks things out way past their expiration date. Like, I don't know. Once you get pregnant again, the clock starts. If you can't make it to the birth, then you really didn't try that hard.
I didn't want to hurt her, but deep down, I knew we just weren't right for each other. So he never tells her that. I don't think they ever...
He just is like, quote unquote, leaving for LA to like look for work. And then he's like, yeah, it was more than that. I was just kind of like getting out of the house. So I guess he was just like disappearing for weeks at a time. Meanwhile, she's pregnant with his baby and then 2 other kids, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess I feel like if you don't want to be around someone's family all the time, you shouldn't have another baby with a woman who already has 2 kids.
My chapter with Char didn't end as expected, but I'm grateful for its lessons. I'm grateful for the family that was created. The way things ended with her forced me to confront some tough truths. This book reminded me a lot of Wilmer Valderrama's book, where he just kind of only says positive things about himself and just like excludes the whole story.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that
Very
if
you with the Louvre heist.
Yes.
Anyway, just a couple guys with a dream. Wishing them best of luck. We try and we fail, and sometimes we grow and we learn.
Exactly. Nobody gets hurt along the way. At least I didn't mean for that to happen. And if it did, I'm truly sorry.
So I never found out.
My deepest sympathies to anyone who was expecting to see those jewels at the museum. I didn't mean to hurt you, but sometimes we don't always think about other people's perspectives, and it's a lesson I've learned to this day. That was last Wednesday.
So he goes out in one of these nights out in LA with the boys, and he hears that Brittany's going to be there. He kind of doesn't believe it. He shows up, and he says they just like lock eyes and it's on. Brittany had this presence about her. She was confident but not intimidating, engaging without trying too hard. We talked for a little while and then hit the dance floor. Nothing too wild, just a little playful back and forth. Honestly, at the time in my 25-year-old mind, I was just thinking about smashing that. But she had this way of making you feel at ease, like you didn't have to put on a front or keep up your guard. I felt like I could be myself.
So at this point, he has a child and a pregnant girlfriend, and he is at the club with his boys. He and Brittany go home together. She has an after party at her place.
No, she doesn't. And I think that this is important because it's something that I'm really interested about by celebrity LA life.
Mm-hmm.
They go back to the Beverly Hills Hotel where she has a bungalow. Sorry. I mean, the amount of times they're like just at a hotel in LA.
Yeah.
I am very curious about that subculture of celebrity where you're just like staying at a hotel a mile from your home.
Because you don't want to clean up after having all these people over.
Sure.
Anyway, so she's got a bungalow at the hotel and they just hole away there for days.
Yeah, she's like, we had sex that night. I thought it was going to be a one night stand, but then we just like ended up being there. Finally, he goes, I'm drawn to the fact that she was independent with her own life, her own strength. She was her own person, confident. That was a big deal for me. Imagine being like, I like that this woman had her own life. Your girlfriend's home because she's pregnant. Oh, do you hate the way that your girlfriend is currently being anchored down by the breastfeeding infant you gave her? Like, anyway.
Brittany was so independent.
Not like that woman I knocked up twice. She was always busy. Anyway, so they go out for the first time and he is like, you actually cannot imagine what it was like dealing with the paparazzi. It was another world. Like he had been in LA. He kind of ran in a crew, but he's like, it was hard to believe what was going on. There was just like hordes of them. You were never alone. And he does say with Brittany, it was just like super high-paced life that I do think this is one of the more honest descriptions of what it is like to be sucked into the life of a celebrity. And he doesn't have the self-awareness to admit that that's kind of what was happening, but he does describe it. And I think it helps people understand why celebs get married so fast. Because I think when you're like jet setting and there's hundreds of people, when everybody is circling you and there's paparazzi and everything feels like this like intense moment, it feels like you've lived a lifetime together and it's been 4 weeks. Like, you know what I mean? I do like think it's interesting the way he was like, when you're with her, you're in this other world.
Yeah, and time moves differently in that world and everything exists differently in that world. But then you like step to the side for a second and realize you are still in the real world.
So then she demands that he goes on tour with her, which I understand because I think she was already like feeling overwhelmed. And so he goes on tour with her.
We'd spent days together before I went back to my apartment to grab clothes. Even then, she was already making calls to her team, telling them that I was going on tour with her.
Her insistence was overwhelming. I remember thinking, wow, this is a lot of pressure. But at the same time, I felt like I couldn't say no. We felt like we owed it to ourselves to see where this goes. I wonder what you owe the children.
That are yours. It's so funny that he would not go on tour to work, but he will go on tour with his girlfriend. I handled the breakup with Shar poorly. I wasn't honest or direct. Before I left for Europe to meet up with Brittany, I saw her and Corey, that's the child. I told her that I'd booked a commercial shooting overseas. I knew it would hurt her and I didn't want that. He lied. He just full out lied and said, I'm going overseas to shoot a commercial, not I'm going overseas with my new girlfriend. You're not my girlfriend anymore.
I wasn't the man I needed to be. I wasn't the man I wanted to be. And for that, I am truly sorry. I actually think it's a huge dishonesty for you to say you weren't the man you wanted to be. I think you wanted to be the man fucking Brittany on tour, and you did live that life. The man you didn't want to be was the father and boyfriend of Shar Jackson.
Because if you had wanted to be that man, you would have been.
You actually were technically that man. She was under the impression you were her boyfriend and baby daddy.
This is just like one of the more egregious things I think someone's done to a woman in one of these books we've read.
So then he's like, we were just so in our own world, and she appreciated that I didn't want something from her. The tour was all encompassing. And then he starts talking about how like the tour was his first red flag because two of her security guards, this guy Lonnie, who already knew him, said, can I talk to you for a minute? And he says, what are you doing? I told him the truth. I was unhappy that things were falling apart with Shar. I met Brittany. We connected. Lonnie is somebody who knew Shar Jackson. And so you could tell he's like, what are you doing here when you have a baby and another one on the way at home with a girlfriend? And he's like, that was my red flag that Brittany was no good. And I'm like, really? That wasn't your red flag that you were no good?
You were no good. So then the second red flag is he on tour, they're partying a lot, always out and about. And then he sees Brittany making out with one of her girlfriends. And he gets very upset and he goes, I'm leaving. I didn't realize that it was that type of thing. And Brittany begs him to stay and says, I'll never do it again. And he kind of takes this moment as Brittany not realizing that he was serious about her.
Yeah.
It's just this really bizarre moment where he's like, because I was willing to walk away from it all, she realized I really loved her.
It also sets him up as this like real monogamous good guy. And meanwhile, he was literally just cheating on his girlfriend with her.
Literally.
This idea, he's like, that's not what I thought this was. I thought this was serious. Not like that other thing I had with my pregnant girlfriend. Anyway, so she asks him to marry her on a plane. He turns her down. She's kind of shocked. Later, he ends up proposing to her.
Right after she blows out her knee and they have a couple months of recovery.
Mm-hmm. They like get really close. So then they look for a diamond. This was the first thing where I was like, wait, this is crazy. The one she chose was dope, a 4.5 or 5 carat vintage diamond ring. It had that old world charm she loved and it became her first engagement ring. Romantic, unique, timeless. It hit exactly the vibe she was after, but as time passed, her taste shifted. The vintage ring, while beautiful, didn't feel right to her anymore and she decided she wanted something different. He got her a different ring, a 6.5 carat one, and he made the original one his own pinky ring. The rings, like our relationship, tell a story. From the simple beginning without a ring to the extravagant pieces that followed, they mark the moments in time, love, change, and motion, our journey together, everything unfolding faster than either of us could have ever imagined.
I mean, that just makes no sense.
First of all, to be like, her taste shifted over time. They were engaged for like 3.5 months. Second of all, to be like, so don't worry, that 5 carat diamond, I just kept it. Third of all, to be like, they marked the moments in a relationship from no. I don't think Brittany ever thought she wasn't going to get a ring. And in fact, I don't know, just this whole thing is so preposterous. And for him to walk away, having essentially got himself a 5 carat diamond from his ex-fiance, I don't know, all of it is so funny.
While Brittany and I were planning our wedding, my second child with Shar was born. I remember the morning vividly. I mean, shut the fuck up. To pretend that you were there for that kid is so preposterous.
We got married in September, 5 months after we got engaged. 5 months. That was our lifestyle back then. Everything was moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. He always says that was our lifestyle. He keeps being like, that was how we spent money. That was our deal. That was our lifestyle. That was our business. No, that was Brittany's lifestyle. And you were like hanging on for dear life and lucky to be a part of it.
Okay, so then he brings in the fact that she was still hung up on Justin Timberlake. And the night before their wedding, he found her crying about Justin. I told her straight up, if you're not ready to do this, we don't have to. We don't need to get married. I'm happy with what we have. He really uses the first 75% of this book to paint him as this like understanding guy who just loved Brittany and wanted her to have the world.
It's crazy how he can say like two completely opposite things back to back and see no hypocrisy.
Mm-hmm.
So then they get pregnant kind of right away. She ends up having a scheduled C-section September 14th because they knew they couldn't trust like a random hospital visit with all the paparazzi. They had to do it controlled, which really breaks my heart for her.
Yeah.
I felt that way about Pamela Anderson. It's really sad when even that is
stolen.
Yeah.
Before we got married, we signed our deal for the TV show Chaotic. So this is how he gets enough money to buy a house with her, essentially.
And can I say I'm very curious about the actual proportions?
Of course.
He gives me like, now I had some money. He kept acting like he sold a TV show and could contribute. It's not true at all. She got him a gig.
She got him a gig and then he could pay for part of her house. It was like giving him monopoly money. Like she signed a deal and was like, here, these dollars are yours. What do you want to do with it? Chip in on the house that I'm buying you?
Yeah.
So Preston is born and then Brittany pretty immediately gets pregnant again. Like 2.5 months later, she's pregnant again. They end up being born like 1 year and 2 days apart.
No less.
Oh,
like
2 days less than 1 year apart.
Yeah, which is crazy. It is crazy that for 2 days, like they're the exact same age.
So as now Brittany is pregnant and mothering a newborn, he decides that this is a really good opportunity for him to explore career opportunities. And so he starts making music. So the entire time that she is pregnant with their second child and also parenting the newborn, he is recording his first album. Oh my God, this scene is crazy. He's talking about being in Vegas with his friends and the paparazzi staged a moment to make it look like he was staring at some stripper's boobs.
He goes, I was only at that strip club for like half an hour to set my friends up and then I was going home. And I'm like, yeah, totally.
And then this girl came out and the way I turned.
Get strippers to come to your house.
Okay, so here's something that I'd like to discuss actually. Let me put my book down for a moment. So his friends end up stealing this photographer's camera, the photographer that set him up, so that he didn't get exposed for looking at a stripper's boobs.
At a strip club.
At a strip club. The photo made it look like he was, quote unquote, staring right at her chest. What were these photos of?
Yeah, like what was actually that bad?
So I feel like he tells this story because I bet you there was a lawsuit about him stealing the camera, but we don't know what was on the camera because he stole it. I'm sorry, he's stealing a camera because the photo made it look like he was looking at a boob.
Because you forget what's important to them. Like maybe in his mind, something he had to explain for in this book was that lawsuit against him. And so this was his soft story. But to me, it's like not a story I remember at all. So it just is like a dumb story. But I think you're probably 100% right. Like the photo of him walking out of a strip club would have told the exact same story. So what was actually?
I'm sure it was either his face inside of a boob or his body inside of a woman. We know he's not a pornosexual.
It hadn't been invented yet.
Okay, so, he's going on and on about how intense the paparazzi were. And now he's, really trying to figure himself out as a musician. He's really proud of the work he put out there.
Fame didn't change me in the ways people might assume. Sure, it gave me confidence. And to some, maybe that confidence came across as cockiness. Confidence over cockiness has always been my mantra. But man, seeing some of that stuff now, I can understand how it came off. I look back to those days, maybe when the spotlight was a little too bright, blinding me. And now that I can see more clearly, I can't help but cringe a little. But I wasn't trying to be someone I wasn't. So then he goes into how he's always loved music, and music is so much like dance, and that's why he had to do Popazao.
There's always that uphill battle to overcome the assumptions, to prove I wasn't the tabloid villain people expected. This made it really difficult to build my own brand.
Oh, he also says if he was somebody who only cared about attention, he would have never left Brittany. Here he says, she may have been the one who had technically walked out, but I was already gone. I'm not saying it wasn't exhilarating being thrust into the limelight at 25. It was the ultimate rush, an adrenaline high, like nothing else. I felt like I was on top of the world, ready to conquer anything. Fame, in a way, was the most powerful drug I'd ever experienced. It was intoxicating, addictive, and dangerous. You feel invincible. Okay.
So back to his music career. She was supportive, or at least acted supportive, of me wanting to do music, act, and explore the entertainment industry. So this is his way of setting up the fact that Brittany was like jealous and unsupportive. And the thing about it that he leaves out mostly, except for when he like literally can't not write in the timeline, is that Brittany was pregnant and had a baby, a less than 1 year old baby at home. So
there's something almost abusive about not using protection and like getting these women pregnant like so quick postpartum. I really am like, I don't know. It's on you to make sure you do not get these women pregnant again. Like, stop getting women pregnant back to back to back to back.
I also just feel that for him to be pursuing, like, I'm sorry, the first time he's worked in 4 fucking years is like while she's pregnant and also has a baby.
Yeah, when he was with Shaw Jackson, he actually couldn't work because he had a baby. Now that he has 3 children under 4, suddenly he has to start a music career.
3 with 1 on the way.
Because his album launched 6 weeks after Jaden was born.
Exactly.
So one baby was 6 weeks old, one baby was 1 year old, one baby was 2 years old, the other baby was 3 years old.
So the entire
he has
time,
4 children under 4.
The entire time that Britney was pregnant with the 4th child, his 4th child, is when he's decided that he needs a music career.
I also just have to say that this line that we skipped, because we skipped a section about his high school years that you don't give a fuck about. But he says, what kept me grounded amongst the pages of the world's tabloid press was my sense of self and my values.
What the fuck is he talking about?
That's something I take pride in, even when the world is quick to tear you down.
So now he's putting out music. All I wanted to do was create and share and put my art into the world and have people hear it without thinking about whether or not it was truly ready. So this is his way of saying how hurt he was that his album got such shitty reviews. The thing is, it was truly bad. And I think another thing that he won't acknowledge at all is the way that his entire career exists off the back of Britney. Like,
okay, no, he says, it was humbling though. I thought people would embrace it because they knew who I was, but really they had no clue who I was. So which one, like, you know what I mean? He's like, I thought they would like it because I'm famous, but it turns out I'm not even really famous. This, I almost wanted to kill him. It takes way more than name recognition to succeed. I learned that the hard way.
Oh my God, this is the worst line in the book. Oh my God.
Britney's career was built by an unstoppable machine, a team of experts with endless resources and a clear vision. In the hip hop world, success isn't handed to you. It's earned. It's grassroots. You build an audience slowly, gaining respect and traction with every mixtape, every track. I didn't have that foundation.
I'm out of my fucking seat. Hold my crown jewels. I can't believe I want to beat the shit out of this motherfucker.
My first album was my introduction to the industry, but I never had the chance to grow into it. I went straight to the big leagues. Oh, unlike Britney, who worked since she was 7. Oh, Britney had the advantage where everything was handed to her because she worked for 10 years and then had a massive hit that was based directly on her vision and her talent and became like the most charismatic. I just can't. He thinks Britney's career was handed to her by an unstoppable machine, a team of experts with endless resources and a clear vision.
If her machine is so unstoppable, what's going on with Haley Steinfeld?
There's no clear vision there. So then he goes, the way things ended between me and Britney, it was abrupt, but there were signs, stuff I should have paid more attention to. Almost immediately after the album dropped, everything in my personal life unraveled. It dropped, by the way, Halloween 2006.
Yes.
So exactly 21 years ago.
So she's 6 weeks postpartum with her second child in 2 years.
Yeah.
He's having an album release party.
He goes, I was trying to juggle so much, too much maybe. I went on a 6-week promo tour for the album, but by the time I got back to LA, my focus had to shift. The music had to take a backseat to the stuff happening at home. Yeah. If you went on a 6-week tour that culminated in a party 6 weeks after his baby was born, does that mean the day after his second baby in 1 year was born, he left?
Yeah.
Like, kill him.
Kill him. So this is the problem that I think we get to with Britney Spears is that she is a broken person.
Yeah.
And then you look at why, and it's because of moments like this. Like, I know you can't blame someone for someone else's like mental health degrading, but there are factors. And I do think having 2 children in 1 year and then your husband leaves immediately.
And at the end of like a lifetime of being abused by everybody in power and using, like, I mean, she has been through so much. She's been abused by the public. She's been financially abused by her family. Like, I just think every man in her life has treated her like shit. And maybe she probably already had like mental illness to begin with. And now she's postpartum times 2. It's more than anyone can stand and being constantly criticized by the media. Her family is so cruel to her. And on top of that, her husband leaves. Like, yeah, I'd have a nervous breakdown too. So this begins the section of the book, which is like the rest of it, I guess, the next 50%, where he just starts naming every fucked up thing Britney has ever done. And that's why I think my up top warning was like important, because I believe what he's saying. He says some pretty damning things about Britney. And I'm like, yeah, I believe you. I believe that she struggles enormously with her mental health and was at times not a great mother to 2 little babies. And I believe she needed help to step in and help her in a way that enriches everybody and takes her freedoms from her is not actually helpful. In this book, there's a lot of talk about how the Britney fans have actually gone after the boys. And I do think, listen, they didn't ask to be part of this. I understand feeling like, why won't you stand up for your mother? But you don't know their relationship. And I believe she is not a great mom. I believe that they've had a really hard time having a mentally unstable woman as a mother who's like
a mentally unstable and like globally famous.
Yeah,
mother.
I think it has been a hard situation. And I don't think it's their job as her children to have to be the bigger person. I think they get to be children and be like, I've been hurt. My needs come first before I like get on Instagram as an underage person and support my mom. I kind of understand from that perspective why Kevin's like, actually, I will say very quickly, I went, okay, shut the fuck up. Like the way it is so piley on. And I'm like, what do you fucking want? What, like you made your point 100 times now. This is just some like airing of the dirty laundry to make us hate her. It is such an obvious attack to make everybody hate her, to punish anybody who's ever supported her. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. She's mentally unwell. Help her. Somebody step in and help her and stop.
And that's the thing is, I'm like, what do you want? You won. For 14 years, she was a prisoner of her life. Like, what do you won? You did it. You made it so that she had no autonomy for an extremely long time. What now? Like, you did it. She was in a fucking conservatorship.
And I am just like, how badly do you need the public opinion to like penalize her? You will never be vindicated. People don't like you. You've made your point, and now it's 60 more pages of just like bashing her.
Yeah.
And the problem is, I believe it's true. But I also think his perspective is so hateful. And like, we'll get into it, but like the way he'll be like, so because she did XYZ, which I will say, I believe she did the things he accuses her, he'll go, that's why Jamie had to step in as her conservator. Anyway, the next month, I got a restraining order against him because my children weren't safe around her, but he did a great job. I'm like, how could a man that you don't think is safe to be around your children be a good conservator of? That's the crazy thing. Is nobody's able to have the bigger picture and see that the systems in place are hurting her and not helping her, and then they can't understand why she won't get better.
And that's the thing that I was saying at the very beginning of this about Kevin and Jamie Lynn Spears, is that they have this true lack of understanding about mental illness.
It's that they have such a different standard for her.
Yes.
And that's what Jamie Lynn had too. She goes, well, I had to stop speaking to my father because he was so abusive and mean to me when I was in time of trauma.
But why couldn't Brittany just accept his control?
Yeah. Looking back in the way my father treated me was really fucked up. But, you know, they did what they had to when it came to Brittany.
Exactly.
Yeah, for Kevin to say, you know, of course I was doing cocaine, but it was different when Brittany did cocaine. That doesn't mean I wasn't a bad dad. Of course, Jamie Lynn was great to Brittany. I didn't think he should legally be around my children.
He talks about the way she was still doing world tours while under this conservatorship. And he would say, you know, Jamie let her do a tour when she wanted to, and then said, well, once the contracts are signed, you have to follow through with it. What do you mean this person, you believe she still has control of her life, but she's being held to this insane standard where she can still, like, the decisions she's allowed to make are the ones that are going to net $100 million for the family?
You know what enraged me?
What?
Is when he goes, so I had to explain to the boys that the way her conservatorship is set up is that whenever she wants out, all she has to do is petition them and tell them that she's mentally well enough. So the fact that she isn't out means that she hasn't asked, she doesn't want to be, or she isn't well enough, because all she has to do is say, I'm better now, and prove she's better and she could get out. She is literally the first person in the history of America to be let out of a conservatorship. It's so provably false that that's how it works. Okay, should we get back to the book? Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So he goes to this opening party. She's there.
Initially, she had said, I'm not going to come to your launch party because I have to stay home with the kids. He gets there and she's there doing drugs, and he's freaking out because he says, she would drink and do drugs and then breastfeed our children, and I didn't want her to be allowed to breastfeed.
And he's like, I tried to understand where she was coming from. It's been really hard to go from being uber famous to having none of that by being a mom at home. And I'm like, also, like, literally,
you're gone. It's hard to go from being uber famous to now having 2 children, and also you left. Like,
and
you're
then
gone.
He starts complaining that like his family never got to stay over, that nobody really stayed at the house. It was just sometimes her mom, sometimes her family. But he goes, slowly I started to realize how much of myself I was pushing aside just to keep the peace. The only time I saw my boys, my closest friends, was when she was out of town or I could sneak away for a few hours. Okay, didn't you just do a 6-week press tour when your newborn baby was
Weren't you in Vegas with the boys destroying a camera because they got a picture of you looking at a boob?
Maybe your parents weren't allowed to sleep over because you were in New York on TRL when she was home with 2 people.
Can I say, the other thing is, with the Char chapter, he's talking about how annoying it was that there were so many people around. And now with the Brittany chapter, he's talking about how she didn't let any people around.
Yeah, there's always the problem. So he actually gets a music studio at their house. He's always there smoking weed. One time she comes over when she's like pregnant with the baby on her hip, and their security guard had brought him weed. And so she slapped him. And he was like, that was a turning point. That was so crazy. She hit me with our baby. He kept saying, everybody knew I smoked weed. I'd even smoked with her a couple times. Not when she was pregnant, but like, you know, I wasn't lying about smoking weed. I never lied, never changed. She married me knowing exactly who I was. Okay, you're actually supposed to change when you become a father. You're actually supposed to stop doing stuff that you did as a single man when you become a married father.
In his defense, he was already a father.
Yeah, she didn't know that. Maybe it had nothing to do with me at all. Maybe it was the pressure, the postpartum, the pregnancy, the weight of everything crashing down at once. I don't know. What I do know is this: something broke that day and we were never the same after. How about instead of being like, I don't know what was going on with her, your pregnant wife, your pregnant postpartum wife
is looking for you and you're smoking weed in the studio.
And you're like, it didn't feel personal. I mean, listen, it was all those things, but it's actually your job to find out what's going on with her and make it better.
Okay, so it's his release party. She's there. She's doing drugs. He freaks out because he doesn't want her to go home and breastfeed the babies with like drunk milk.
Yeah.
So he calls her mom and says, don't let her breastfeed when she gets home. It was supposed to be my night, and instead it turned out a disaster. Dude, your wife is fucking 6 weeks postpartum with her second child in 2 years. Like, it wasn't supposed to be your night. You actually shouldn't have had a night. It should have been your night like 3 years from now. Like, you guys both should have shut the fuck up for a minute.
And he starts being like, yeah, she was crazy. She had fired so many people at this point. She didn't trust anyone.
Yeah, why would she trust anyone? She can't trust you.
What shook me the most was realizing how fragile everything was. If she could make a choice like that, breastfeeding our boys while high, what else was she capable of? And how many times had it happened before? He says breastfeeding a lot, and it really like pisses me off. I go, shut the fuck up. I go, okay, then go home and give them formula. Go home. Go home and feed them the way you think they should be fed.
Yeah, so he leaves. He goes on tour, and while he's on tour, she files for divorce.
And it's so funny because then he's like, I was so upset. I was so caught off guard. But in this very book, he goes, I was already gone. Yeah. She was told to file first. He had said he was going to file. Like, it was just like this whole thing of everything she does is wrong.
In that single week, I went from trying to fix my marriage to scrambling to figure out how to protect myself in a divorce. And yeah, it hurt like hell. I mean, why are you in Toronto doing an interview for your new album if you're trying to fix your marriage?
And then he's going, all I was thinking about was how to stay in my boys' lives. What about those other kids you already had? What about right now when you're in Canada at Much Music? Yeah, I was angry. I was furious about the way it all went down. Furious that Brittany didn't even think about how it would affect me. That I wanted to hold my boys, but I couldn't. Not yet. I still had commitments to fill. And she had our sons and wasn't going to let me. Dude, why did you have commitments?
Take time off. Beneath the surface, I was a wreck. I felt lost and betrayed.
So he's always like, every time I call, I could hear my babies crying in the background, and I'm just so motivated by protecting my babies.
And then Brittany was partying with like Paris and Lindsay Lohan, and they would call him and he would hear the babies crying.
And he goes, can you believe she would do that? He goes, at the same time, I was unraveling. No matter what, I was going to fight for the kids. The divorce, the fight for the kids, the media scrutiny, it was eating me alive. I started going out more, drinking more, slipping up and doing coke now and then. Anything to drown out the chaff and escape the weight crushing me. But no matter how dark things got, I kept pushing. And then he's like, can you believe Brittany was going out and partying during these days? Anyway, I was going out and partying because everything was so hard. For you, nobody gives a fuck about you. It was way worse for her. Listen, I don't think it's good to do cocaine and then breastfeed your children.
I don't think you should do that.
But I also think the fact that he's like, I had to party to kick off steam because my stupid bitch pregnant wife was at home collapsing, and that puts a lot of pressure on a man.
So the problem is that I do believe his behavior broke Brittany. Like, obviously she couldn't trust anyone. She thought that maybe she could trust him, and she was dead wrong for that. I think she was just like looking for someone that was enough of a loser that they would give up their life for her, and she was so close.
Well, can I say, I think beyond him, I think the hormonal influx of having two children back to back like that, I think he says she was already on a lot of mood stablers. I think she probably does struggle with like a mental illness. Like, I do think all of it came together. I think she did kind of get married and have those babies as a way out. It only made everything worse. And then he abandoned her and she just like fucking fell apart. But what exactly? Yes. I don't think it was him alone.
No, I don't think it was him alone. I think he was a factor that caused her to have a true mental breakdown.
Well, I think the mental breakdown would have happened, but had he stayed by her, we could have gotten her help and she could have come out relatively unscathed.
What I'm saying is I think that his actions caused a true mental breakdown. I think everyone in her life has such a lack of understanding around mental health that they view erratic behavior as like something that she can just fix.
Yeah,
and
something
I think
to be punished.
Because everyone was surrounding her saying like, you are doing this, you are doing this. Like, I think it created this like further and further tumble into.
Yeah.
I think eventually she hit a point that she could not climb out of. And to this day has
not been able to.
Had these like lasting repercussions because around her, everyone is saying, you did this, you did this, you did this to yourself. They have this belief that he's written, that Jamie Lynn has written. They won't stop saying that all of these consequences are results of her own actions, which they just aren't. She is being so disproportionately punished for things that she can't control. And then also there are things she can control. I think
she was in this moment of crisis, and what she needed was her husband to help her get through it. But instead he abandoned her, which exasperated it. And then on top of that, all of these evil vultures who happen to be her own family and then also her own managed team swooped in.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like then they try to do a rehab with her and he's like, I showed up. I said, don't worry, I'm not taking the boys from you. Like, I love you. Like, tell me when you see them. We'll make it happen. And I guess the next day she showed up like desperate for her children back. And he's like, she's so crazy. And that's the night that she famously like drove to the barbershop and shaved her head. He goes, do you see what I was dealing with? And I'm like, do you see what she was dealing? That's what's so crazy. He goes, looking at those photos, I can't believe what I had to put up with. And not like looking back at those photos, I can't believe nobody showed her compassion. And instead, everybody was treating her like an evil person.
I can't believe that he saw those photos after she had been at his house begging to see her children, and he doesn't have just like an enormous pit of guilt that he let her back out into the world that night.
Yeah, and I understand. Listen, and I'm even going to say I'll understand being like, you're clearly not in a place to be with the children right now, but let her into your home.
Like, she needs to be somewhere. She can't be driving a car around Los Angeles.
Your legal wife, and she's not just driving by herself, she's being chased by paparazzi who are desperate to watch her become insane. He talks about his own experience with paparazzi and the way that it could make anybody like a raging bull because they like try to get the worst out of you. It's so crazy that nobody was a safe harbor for her.
Yeah. I mean, she had nowhere to go. Her dad was evil. Her mom was spineless. Her sister was young. Her husband was evil. Like, who did she have?
So then that happened, and then he's like, you know, they 51-50'd her twice that year. There was that incident where she was holding Jaden. And listen, I understand that the children cannot be pawns. I'm not going to sit here and be like, let Brittany have her babies, even if she's in the middle of like a mental health crisis. But for him, even 20 years later, to look back and feel bad that clearly she's not getting the help she needed. Because we, with Who's with Tabs, hold on a second, we're talking about Britney Spears. We did the timeline. And so she had that rehab thing where she broke out, tried to see her kids, shaved her head, was 51-50'd. And then 3 weeks later, shot an episode of How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
This idea that all these people only cared to help her, all these people only cared to get her money making again.
I mean, that August is when
Blackout
she
came
did,
out, right?
Yeah, and she did the VMAs performance where everyone was like, wait, is she still not good? And it's like, yeah, I guess she's still not good. 6 months ago, she shaved her head.
And that's what's so fucked up is that he was being like, she was so crazy. Why didn't anybody help her then? They weren't helping her. Stop making her work. So then she gets put in a psychiatric hold. The last thing I wanted to do was to tear her down, to point out every mistake, every flaw, every incident, but I had to. I was fighting for my children. Okay, that's your court excuse. What's this book excuse? Because this book is really just like listing every fucked up thing he can remember she ever did. And I believe she was acting unwell. Like he said, she kept showing up to the courthouse, and at one point she showed up in her wedding dress. And I'm like
she would show up late. She would show up erratically.
I'm not going to sit here and say it's a good look to show up in a wedding dress fighting for custody of your children. But at the same time, I don't know what good we're doing talking about it now. I don't know why you can't look back and go, if this is 51-50 holds later, then clearly the help they think they're giving her is not working. Who has her best interest at heart?
Okay, so then he talks about how he starts partying on the weekends. I was young, newly single, and living a lifestyle that pulled me into a whirlwind of partying. Balancing these two worlds was challenging, to say the least.
So then he goes on to do multiple chapters about all the crazy parties he got to go to and all of the Scott Storch mountains of cocaine. And he got to do a Super Bowl commercial, and he got to party with Snoop Dogg, and he was doing drugs. He was partying. He was dancing. He was working. Meanwhile, he's like, can you believe that fucking crazy Britney? Anyway.
And he really paints these as if they were accomplishments in his own career and not just like, what do you call it, shrapnel from the Britney machine.
He asked his lawyer if it's okay to smoke weed with Snoop Dogg. And he goes, Kevin, as your attorney, if you get the opportunity to smoke with Snoop Dogg, you don't, then you're a fucking idiot. Coolest lawyer on the planet. Meanwhile, Britney's like in a padded cell being told, yeah, you can leave if you do a Vegas residency. Otherwise, get back in. Like, it is so unfair.
Mm-hmm.
He does a couple chapters about getting to do the WOE. What made it all so surreal was that I was doing some of the greatest shit in my life while dealing with the worst, hitting the highest highs while living my lowest lows.
And he really doesn't understand why in the WWE, like all these situations, he has to first enter as a villain and then he can like maybe try to win people over. And it's like, bro, you are a villain. You just are. You are an evil, evil person who is a self-centered, hapless loser.
So then the divorce goes through and he talks about he gets $20,000 for child support. And then he got $20,000 a month in alimony for half the marriage. So like
a year.
So not that much. So mostly he was getting $20,000 a month.
And he goes, it actually doesn't go that far when you're trying to keep up appearances in LA.
And of course not. Like I will say, of course not. But that's why you have to get a job. Because he's like, when you think about the fact that I had 4 children. And I was like, well, yeah, get a job and support the other 2.
Get a job. Also,
I do believe that he needed full-time security for those kids.
Oh, me too. But I also don't think he needed I mean, when he's talking about the house in Tarzana where he was living when he met Vic, his current wife, he's talking about the fucking like swim up bar. I do believe he needed full-time security. I don't believe he needed a house on a golf course like that.
It's also like, yeah, okay, get it, then go work, bitch.
go work, do something. He's also at that point getting $100K for club appearances.
Yeah. I'm really interested in the math because he says, I was getting $100K for club appearances. I made $500,000 to be on The Biggest Loser. At my height, I was making $300,000 to $500,000 per year. And I go, okay, well, I just added up. What?
Yeah.
So you were getting $100,000 for club appearances and you did 3?
I don't know, man. And then he also says he thought it would last forever, which that's obviously stupid.
Brittany had her own unique perspective on things. She saw the events in her life through a prism that painted her as the victim, the misunderstood one, the person wronged by everyone around her. From where I stood, she needed help. Whether that was rehab or therapy, I couldn't say for sure.
Both. It was both.
Whatever the case, it was clear that she was in no state to responsibly manage her own affairs. She needed some form of oversight. So this is where he goes in to be like, I don't know, I think the conservatorship was a good idea and that Joe did a great job. And I understand that, like, maybe for that point in time, she couldn't be around her kids. If she's like drunk, erratically driving, and listen, if you're in a bad time, I get that maybe for a couple weeks you should be with your kids. But the idea that for the next 15 years, you need somebody standing in and doing your multi-million-dollar deals.
If you can do multi-million-dollar deals, then you don't need.
Can I say actually the reverse? I would almost argue first. If you can't handle signing for multi-billion-dollar deals, then you can't live up to them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree. It just gets so sad because the thing is, I do think that him and Jamie Lynn have a point that there are certain actions that Brittany could probably take more responsibility for. However, she's already been so disproportionately punished for them. I get why she can never climb out of it. Like, I get why she's like, what do you mean you want me to take responsibility for my own actions? I did. I lived 14 years of punishment.
And I also think because what they've done to try to not help her, but to try to like prop her back up and send her back out on stage is like when she says, I don't trust therapists anymore. I go, there is actually no way out of this because I think she has every right to say, I don't trust a therapist. I don't want to be on a medication. They put me on lithium against my will, tied to a chair. And he keeps saying things like, well, if what she says is true and she sees that as a trauma, it's her right to see that as a trauma. That's traumatic.
Yeah.
And I think like, if she says, I never want to get back on that shit again, of course, who am I? But unfortunately, I think she does need some help. But I understand that all versions of help have only hurt her. And so she's like help resistant.
Exactly. And it is this really complicated thing where I'm like, I don't understand how she is expected to mind everyone else's feelings while not a single person has ever given a shit about her. The way that Jamie Lynn is sitting there being like, why won't she take responsibility for the ways she hurt me? And it's like, well, you have not for one fucking second considered her perspective.
So he says, I thought Jamie, the father's hard-nosed approach was exactly what Brittany needed. Yeah, that's what a woman having a postpartum meltdown needs. Hard-nosed discipline and business acumen.
Hard-nosed discipline from the person that you got a restraining order against 2 years later.
That went to rehab because he was an alcoholic who hit your kid. That's who needed to be in charge. Somebody with some sense. He wasn't the type to sugarcoat things, and given how out of control her life had become, structure was critical. Nobody ever says like care and compassion.
They now have joint custody over the kids, and when they go to Brittany's house, they are coming back with stories. He believes that the kids are not, they're very resistant to spending time with Brittany. And the problem is, it seems like things were pretty fucked up over there because she was being drugged and abused.
Yeah.
It is hard because I'm like, yeah, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a safe environment for children, but like, why won't anyone help her?
He goes, if Brittany believed she was being held against her will and everything else she's shared since, then that trauma is real for her. And you can't ignore that. But he thinks the Free Britney movement doesn't understand how crazy she was and how much she needed the help. I guess the thing is, as you've said, he doesn't understand mental illness. Listen, if it was 30 years ago, I guess he'd lock her to a radiator in a straitjacket. He'd put her in a circus show. That's not how you help people who are struggling.
Brittany never reached the first step of recovery, admitting that there was a problem. And that's, I guess, what I just said. But the problem is there was no care. There was no compassion. She was only punished. And so for her to sit there and be like, oh, you're right. Oh my God, I didn't realize that 14 years of torture, you guys were just trying to help me because I was the problem. What do you want her to say?
Listen to what he says here. I wanted to kill him. I mean, hey, I get it. Addiction and mental health issues don't just appear out of nowhere. They build up, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast. And when they hit hard. For her, it was like flipping a switch. The person I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. And as much as I tried to understand, it didn't change the fact that her choices, no matter what the reasons for them, were affecting our kids. Okay,
her choices.
To be like, hey, I get it. Addiction, mental health issues are tough. I'm not going to help you.
Why'd you choose to have them then? If addiction's so hard, why'd you pick it?
Anyway, the pressure of her addiction issues really meant that I had to go out and just let myself do tons of cocaine pretty often. What happened to my other two kids? I haven't seen him in years, but she is a really bad mother who should mostly just keep working and not get to use her own kitchen.
So then he meets Vic, a volleyball coach, and she's so cool.
So they did this crazy thing where like
he explains Vic's perspective on meeting Brittany, how Vic was like, wow, you're such a good man. She's so psycho.
Something weird is that Brittany goes on tour, and so they figure out this like convoluted way to let her see the boys where like he'll come out and rent a house and live there near her. And I am like, yeah, this does sound convoluted. There's something where I'm like, either she's adult enough to understand why that doesn't work, or she wants to be with her children over work, or she's not. Do you know what I mean? They're acting like all of these back end deals they're doing to keep Brittany happy is so crazy on her, as opposed to them, who's like, if it's so crazy, then say no, we're not doing that. Then you can just skip the tour.
Well, where his like whole scheme slips a little bit is when he's saying the only way they could get her to do the tour is, and it's like, yeah, you were forcing her to tour.
She wanted to be home and see her children. You insisted that she toured in order to see her children. Like, as we now know from sources, everything was done with the threat of you won't get to see your babies. So I'm sure they were like, if you don't work, then we won't like let you see your babies. And then she goes, well, how will I see my babies if I work? And so they come up with this whole thing, and it's what they wanted. Then he talks about how Vic like was so selfless because she had a promising career and she gave it all up so that he could be Brittany's like baby daddy or something.
Yeah, she was going to be like a women's volleyball commentator on Fox Sports. The thing that's so frustrating is this narrative that Brittany is so hyper controlling and like insists upon signing a deal for a new record or signing a deal for a new tour, or like doing all these things. Like she wants to work. She wants to work. It's all under the guise of like she wanted this. And so now in order for us to help her make it happen, we had to upset her. And like she either is in control and is leading her career, or she is deeply out of control and you guys are making her like, do you know what I mean? There's this bonkers back and forth about like what she's making them do and what they're doing in order to keep her happy so that she'll do the things that they want.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Are you keeping her happy so that she will go on tour and continue to make you money? Or is she insisting upon going on tour?
In which case, if you're the hard-nosed, disciplined guy who recognizes it's too much, then tell her no. So then he's like, I kept my head down. He talks about his pathetic little life choices. He does Celebrity Fit Club, where he's like, they try to get me to be dramatic, but that's not me. I'm just a chill guy. And then they wanted him to be the host for Dancing with the Stars. He says no. He's an idiot. He loses the weight. And then he has to do another dieting show, and he loses the weight again in Australia.
It's so crazy that he's like, all that mattered to me was like being near my family. So Vic is 3 months postpartum with their second child, I believe.
Postpartum?
Or no, but when they left for Australia, sorry.
Yeah, but he got the news the day she gave birth, and she's like there with their newborn, and he's like, guess what? We're moving to Australia.
Yeah.
She's like, placenta not even out yet. He's taking business calls.
No, they flew to Australia with a 3-month-old.
Which, of course, they had to leave the boys behind. One thing about him is when he doesn't feel like working, he can't leave his children. But when the minute a job opportunity comes up that allows him to abandon his children, he's like, peace out, bitches. So they have a baby. Then he proposes to her, and he's like, looking back, I wish I had invited any of my children to the wedding. That was kind of crazy. And I was like, yeah.
Work slowed down on its own, but I wasn't chasing it either. I'd still mess around with music here and there, but I wasn't trying to release anything. But it wasn't for lack of material. Shut up.
So then he keeps just like airing gossip about Brittany and behind the scenes. This is during her Vegas residency when she famously like didn't say anything and then gets called off because her dad goes to the hospital. Behind the scenes, though, it was clear Brittany was on a downward spiral. This is when she says she was sent to that facility where they like drugged her against her will. And he's like, I don't know what was happening there, but she probably needed it. Like, he's such a hater. The boys don't want to hang out with Brittany anymore. They say she's acting weird and they feel uncomfortable. They have a lot of anxiety. I tried to explain the conservatorship to them, including how she could have petitioned to end it if she felt ready to take control of her life.
Fuck you.
That it lasted for 13 years was a reflection of her struggles. For years, she placed blame on everyone but herself. Me, her father, her team. The boys grew up hearing this and it left them confused and frustrated. They didn't want to pick sides or be caught in the middle, but they felt like they had no choice. They loved their mom and they couldn't deal with the environment she created. So then they stopped seeing each other. He goes, things got worse for her, but she pushed away everyone who cared about her. Assistants, managers, security.
What do you mean everyone who cared about her and then you list a bunch of employees?
And then he's kind of like, listen, all these Free Britney movement people are only making things worse. Things are worse now that she's free. She should have never gotten out of the conservatorship. He goes, if you really want to help her, you need to like change your tune. The truth is that this situation with Britney feels like it's reaching towards something irreversible. The signs are all there. It's impossible to pretend everything's okay.
So his final plea in this book is for Brittany to get help again, basically. He feels that she's spiraling. And the problem is, at this point, the children are over 18.
Let them.
It's hard because, you know, you look at her social media and you go, yeah, I don't think that that's like someone who's A-okay.
She's not dangerous to society. She's allowed to do what she wants. But then he like goes on to talk about like my family dynamic wasn't perfect, but it was great. Hers was crazy. And then he goes through and talks about how
he
everyone
talks about how Jamie's an alcoholic
but also such a great conservator, but also how he like shook the boys and like broke down a door. So he did a restraining order.
And he's always had anger issues and like reactivity and all these problems where I'm like, oh, and do you think that that might be the fucking dad Brittany grew up with?
Eventually, I had to file a restraining order against Jamie myself. It wasn't just one incident, the culmination of everything that had been building between the boys and their mom for years. It is so crazy to say that Jamie is so great, but, you know, not safe to be around.
The person I give the most respect to is Jamie Lynn. She had her own life, her own challenges, and her own take on this whole mess. Shut the fuck up. That opportunistic little bitch. She talks about how Jamie Lynn was so impressive, how she created a career for herself at 13 years old, as if.
I don't think Lynn is the villain in any of this. She's been caught in the middle between loving her daughter and surviving her daughter. When things blew up in public, you could see it crush her. From my perspective, Lynn's just a mom trying to hold it all together. And then the epilogue is like, anyway, I have 2 more kids. The goal of a lifetime has been figuring out
how to make sure they all know each other.
2 of them don't really talk to me, but hey. Anyway, I hate that man so much. This book really upset me. I really felt like so cruel to her. I would have rathered it be like needlessly self-obsessed and that like he's telling us about his own shit, but really it was just like an attack on her.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this book was to say, actually, I'm a good guy because I, abandoned Britney Spears in her time of need and am on the side of everyone who's tried to exploit her. Congratulations. This narrative of like she needs to take responsibility for her actions is truly one of the more evil and psychotic perspectives. And now we've had to read it twice.
I mean, one of the more incredible things I've ever seen is at the beginning when he was talking about how Shar was pregnant. And I kept going, when was that baby born? I feel like he doesn't even, and then because he's like talking about meeting Britney and stuff. And I'm like, oh, the baby hasn't even been born yet.
Yeah. I mean, afterwards when he goes through his kids, his first child is 23. His second child is 21. Then you get to his kids with Britney, who are 20 and 19. Then you get to his kids with Vic, who are 14 and 11, I think. So the first 4, it was 4 and 4 years.
Barely.
Yeah, barely. But with 2 different women.
Anyway, what a disgusting, pathetic loser, man.
So this week's Caps Off goes to John Stamos. Enemy of the Pod, John Stamos, went on Enemy of the Pod, Josh Peck's podcast. And I guess, is he an enemy of the pod or is he an enemy of me is an enemy of the pod?
Yeah, you're us.
He went on Josh Peck's podcast to talk about how Lori Loughlin is actually an angel and she didn't even do anything bad. It was actually her evil ex-husband who lied to get their daughter into college that she didn't even go to. And he really went on to defend Lori and say that she's a saint and she never did anything bad and Massimo is a piece of shit.
Roll the tape, Emily.
40 years I've known her. And you can see through people after a few years. Like, this woman's a saint. Like, she has never, it's just hard to see her going through. I'm just heartbroken for her right now. I've really tried to be there for her during this time. And also with the college scandal. I mean, I'm not going to debate whether she had much to do with it or not. I know she didn't. I mean, he dragged her through that. Maybe she saw something. I don't know. Then I think right around that time, they busted in and got Massimo out of their guns and stuff. She goes to fucking prison for this asshole for 3 months, right? And he goes for whatever. The honest to God truth, I pray for this guy. I pray that he gets a hold of his whatever hole that he's trying to fill, however he's trying to fill it. I pray that he realizes that what he had was everything that anyone could ever hope for, and that he gets some help. I think this guy needs help. Whatever negativity or hardships that you've been through your life is connected to this guy, And
this he's supposedly not a very good guy. Like, I think he cheated on her. Right?
I'm taking the fifth on that. Whatever he did to her, it busted her up to the core.
Yeah.
And she put up with a lot over the years of this guy. He's a very successful dude. I will never talk to him again. He's a terrible narcissist, and I don't think you ever get out of that.
I don't even really know what he's talking about here, but I really am just like, the vibe is weird. Shut up. Stop talking about her.
I guess she just like already went to jail for it.
Anyway, Caps off, John Stamos.
God, wait, can I say what a pickle he's put us in with this? Because obviously believe women, but in order to believe Lori, you have to believe Josh Peck and John Stamos.
I don't feel too troubled by it.
I'm pickled.
All right, love you guys.